Chapter 415. First Elder, this matter needs to be discussed at length. Why don't we bring Ling Xiao back to the sect and let the higher-ups discuss it before making a decision? Although Elder Tu's attitude wasn't as firm as Heavenly Master Goldenlight and Wang Han Tianzuan, he also felt that Ling Xiao was an outstanding talent and couldn't die just like that. Since all of you have said so, I'll take my leave first. Elder Jean didn't have the face to continue staying here. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to keep his old face anymore. Let's go too. Ling Xiao, why don't you return to the sect with us first? Don't worry, with me around, I won't let anything happen to you. Wang Han Tianzuan looked at Ling Xiao and said, I'll listen to Heavenly Master's instructions. After returning to the sect, Ling Xiao wasn't afraid at all. He had already figured out most of the formations in the Yuehua school. If the higher-ups of the sect really wanted to treat him unfairly, he would have to create havoc in the Yuehua school and make it disappear from the Sky Dragon continent. The crowd looked at the high-spirited Ling Xiao, and all sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts. Naturally, they all had different thoughts. However, after today's incident, they believed that Ling Xiao's strength and talent would cause quite a stir in the 12 sects. Although it wasn't enough to shake the core disciples, it was enough to put a lot of pressure on the inner disciples. Among the crowd, there was a girl who looked exactly like Shi Mei, whom Ling Xiao had killed. The girl stared at Ling Xiao with a cold and vengeful look in her eyes. However, she was also a little afraid. She was Shi Jiao, Shi Mei's twin sister. Both of them had snake martial souls, but they were of different types. Shi Jiao had followed the experts from the Beast King Palace to Green Valley. Her goal was naturally to seek justice for the deaths of Shi Mei and the others. However, when she saw Ling Xiao's strength, Shi Jiao bit her lip and didn't dare to say anything. He's too strong. It was no wonder that he was able to kill his sister, Shi Mei, as well as his 2 other senior brothers, despite being only 14 years old. Compared to Ling Xiao, although she was also a 3rd-layer Transcendent Realm cultivator and a late 3rd-layer Transcendent Realm cultivator at that. However, cultivation didn't represent one's strength. Ling Xiao had too many cards up his sleeves. With just an early Transcendent Realm 3rd-layer cultivation, he was able to kill He Suo, who was at the peak Transcendent Realm 4th layer, in a single move. She believed that she was absolutely no match for He Suo, so she was even less likely to be a match for Ling Xiao. Don't be afraid, junior sister. I will find a chance to help you destroy this brat. The one who spoke was the 9th-ranked core disciple of the Beast King Palace, Yinghui. He keenly noticed a change in Shi Jiao's expression and knew what this junior sister of his was worried about. He had always liked Shi Jiao, so naturally, he would not let go of the opportunity to display his strength. He had seen the battle between Ling Xiao and He Suo. Indeed, Ling Xiao was indeed very strong, so strong that even Yinghui was surprised. However, to him, Ling Xiao was still a small fry, not even worth mentioning. If he wanted to kill Ling Xiao, it would be a simple matter. Among the 12 sects, the weakest core disciple was at least at the 7th-layer Transcendent Realm. But Yinghui, as the 9th-ranked core disciple of the Beast King Palace, had already reached the peak of the 8th-layer Transcendent Realm. Saying that Ling Xiao was like an ant in front of him was not wrong at all. Hearing Yinghui's words, Shi Jiao raised her head and glanced at him, a charming smile appearing on her face as she nodded, the fear in her heart vanishing in an instant. Yinghui was right. No matter how strong Ling Xiao's talent was, compared to Yinghui, he was still just a piece of trash. As long as she firmly grasped Yinghui in her hands, she was confident she could kill Ling Xiao at any time. Seeing Shi Jiao's smile, Yinghui felt that anything he did for this woman was worth it. He suddenly walked out of the crowd and said loudly, Everyone from the Yuehua school, please wait. Oh, so it's Yinghui from the Beast King Palace. What's the matter? Meng Yuan was one of the 10 core disciples of the Yuehua school, so he often interacted with Yinghui. Although he had never won against Yinghui, they could be considered old acquaintances. It's none of your business. Ingwea looked at Meng Yuan with disdain, then stared at Ling Xiao and said, "This boy killed 3 of my Beast King Palace's disciples. Today I must explain it clearly in front of everyone." "Ling Xiao, is this true?" Elder Tu asked with a frown. He had heard that Ling Xiao had indeed killed a few disciples from other sects in order to protect the Green Valley Manor from the Beast King Palace, but he did not expect them to be disciples from the Beast King Palace. This was troublesome. Disciple killed 3 idiots who tried to steal the credit from the Yuehua school. But I don't know if they were disciples from the Beast King Palace. Ling Xiao said indifferently. "Ingwea, you heard it too, right? Ling Xiao only killed 3 shameless idiots who tried to steal the credit from the Yuehua school. I don't think that the disciples of the Beast King Palace would be so shameless, right?" Wang Han Tianzuan asked with a smile. Of course, the disciples of the Beast King Palace would not be so shameless, but it's a fact that Ling Xiao killed the disciples of the Beast King Palace. Ingwea said resolutely. "You said that I killed the disciples of the Beast King Palace, but do you have any evidence?" Ling Xiao asked. "So many people saw it, and you still want to deny it?" Ingwea said angrily. "What a joke, so you don't have any evidence. Since that's the case, can I assume that the Beast King Palace is deliberately stirring up trouble and making an enemy out of the Yuehua school?" Ling Xiao had always tied himself to the Yuehua school. Although the Yuehua school was indeed the weakest among the 12 sects, none of the other sects wanted to start a war with them. Any sect that had been around for tens of thousands of years would have a very deep foundation. Even if they were weak now, if they were to use some kind of trump card in a battle, the best-case scenario would be that both sides would suffer heavy losses. Instead, it would allow others to reap the benefits. "You're indeed a sharp-tongued person. I wonder if you dare to compete with me? If you're still a man, then don't be afraid of a battle." Ingwea knew very well that his junior brothers and sisters had already turned into ashes. Where could he find evidence now? It was impossible for him to find trouble with the disciples of the Yuehua school based on the casual words of a few disciples. Therefore, instead of worrying about this matter, he might as well do it himself. He would teach Ling Xiao a lesson and then accidentally kill Ling Xiao. He didn't believe that the Yuehua school would start a war with the Beast King Palace over an outer sect disciple. After all, he could tell that the head of the Yuehua school's law enforcement hall didn't like this kid. Hearing Ingwea's words, the inner sect disciples of the Yuehua school were stunned. Ingwea had embarrassed the disciples of the Yuehua school in various sect competitions. Now he was actually targeting Ling Xiao. On the other hand, the disciples of the Beast King Palace were all excited. If Ingwea were to make a move, then what was Ling Xiao? They couldn't allow the Yuehua school to monopolize the limelight today. Chapter 416. The disciples of Beast King Palace knew very well that one of them was a peak transcendent 8th layer master. The other was an early transcendent 3rd layer cultivator. The gap between the two was simply too big. Ling Xiao could defeat Heisua, but it was absolutely impossible for him to defeat Ingwea. Therefore, they were all very happy to see Ingwea teach Ling Xiao a lesson. Haha, so if I don't accept your challenge, I'm not a man? Since that's the case, I'd like to ask you, Ingwea, since you're so overbearing, why don't you directly challenge our Yuehua school's Wang Han Tianzuan or Heavenly Venerable Golden Light? Ling Xiao sneered. That way, you can show off your manly side and let that delicate girl beside you see how fearless you are. Brother Ling, whether it's Wang Han Tianzuan or Heavenly Venerable Golden Light, they are both much older than this humble one. Even if they were seniors, even if I, Ingwea, had 10 times the courage, I still wouldn't dare challenge them. Ingwea smiled faintly. Brother Ling, don't you think you're too cowardly to use such words to fool me? Oh, Ingwea, so there are times when you don't dare to fight? Are you still a man? Ling Xiao sneered disdainfully. You know you're not a match for Wang Han Tianzuan or Heavenly Venerable Golden Light, and you know they're older than you. Then, may I ask, Brother Ing, how old are you? 36, Ingwea quickly said. That's right, I'm 36, but do you know how old I am? Ling Xiao said indifferently. I'm only 14 this year. Why don't you say you're bullying the young? Hearing this, the crowd nodded in agreement. Ing Guya was 36 years old. Although reaching the peak of the transcendent eighth layer at this age was already quite amazing. However, Ling Xiao was only 14 years old. Ing Guya didn't dare to challenge someone older than him, but instead asked Ling Xiao to challenge him. He really was shameless. With Ling Xiao's talent, at 36 years old, he was definitely not just at the peak of the transcendent eighth layer. Ing Guya was stunned for a moment. He really did not think that Ling Xiao's trap was set for him here. This put him in an awkward position. However, he quickly added, "That's simple. Brother Ling is an early-stage transcendent realm third-layer cultivator. I can also control my cultivation to the same level. Is that okay? Why go through so much trouble? Why don't you find 3 disciples of the Beast King Palace who are at the same cultivation level as me and spar with me? Do you people from the Beast King Palace dare to fight me?" Just as Ing Guya's voice fell, Ling Xiao put forward his own request in tit for tat. This made Ing Guya feel as if he had swallowed a mouthful of feces, and he was unable to say anything for a long time. The disciples of the Beast King Palace looked at each other with fear written all over their faces. Ling Xiao had even killed a peak transcendent realm fourth layer cultivator in a single move. So even if 3 of them went up, what use would it be? They might just end up following in Shimei's footsteps. Humph, Ing Guya. So you're trying to tell me that all cultivators below the transcendent realm fourth layer in your Beast King Palace aren't men? Since you don't dare to fight, we'll take our leave. Ling Xiao coldly snorted, turned around, and flew away, leaving behind only a few words for the disciples of the Beast King Palace. Ing Guya, you and I will fight one day, but it won't be long, at most a year. I hope you won't be like them when the time comes and act like a man. Ha 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 ha. Ling Xiao's voice was even more domineering and confident than Ing Guya's. Challenging Ing Guya in a year. Did this little brat really think he could break through to the peak transcendent realm 8th layer in a year? Hearing this, everyone was shocked. However, in the crowd, there were many who firmly believed Ling Xiao's words. They had never heard of the name Ling Xiao before, let alone had any contact with Ling Xiao. But after the incident in Green Valley, they had a clearer understanding of Ling Xiao's character. This person was bold and reckless, but his talent was astonishing, and his thoughts were meticulous. On the surface, he seemed frivolous and unrestrained, but in reality, he was extremely cunning. Some of his seemingly reckless actions, if one thought about it carefully, turned out that this little brat had ulterior motives. If he really was arrogant and ignorant, Ling Xiao would definitely have fought with Ing Guya today and returned in defeat. Not only did he not accept the other party's invitation to fight, but he also said he would definitely challenge Ing Guya in a year's time. This little brat really had a bright future ahead of him. Many cultivators who were clearly stronger than Ling Xiao felt a deep sense of dread towards Ling Xiao. This kind of dread even surpassed Ing Guya's, because they felt that Ling Xiao would soon surpass the 9th ranked core disciple of Beast King Palace. The disciples of Beast King Palace all watched Ling Xiao's departing figure with ugly expressions. This person didn't even put their senior brothering in his eyes. Just how arrogant was he? "I'll wait for you." Ing Guya coldly spat out these 4 words, then flicked his sleeves and said, "Let's go back." In a year's time, he didn't believe that Ling Xiao could be stronger than him. On the path of martial arts, the higher one went, the more difficult it was. It wasn't strange that Ling Xiao's cultivation speed was fast, but it would be hard to say in the future. One day later, Ling Xiao and the others returned to Yuehua School. 2 days later, after a discussion among the upper echelons of the sect, the head elder came out personally and made a decision. Ling Xiao is extraordinarily brave. As an outer disciple, he was able to complete a level 4 mission during the inner disciples' joint training. Moreover, He relied on his own strength to kill the plague demon king and discover the secret of the true demonic empire's revival. Reward. Although this was easy to say, there were some things that had to be thought through carefully. The reward for a level 4 mission was clear and simple, with a clear reward limit. He just needed to follow it step by step. As for the merit of killing the plague demon king and discovering the true demonic empire's conspiracy, that needed to be discussed properly. First, Ling Xiao received the reward for a level 4 mission. Originally, the reward for a level 3 mission was relatively small, but the reward for a level 4 mission would be greatly increased. The reward was 1,000 low-grade spiritual stones and 1,000 sect honor points. Secondly, Ling Xiao had killed the plague demon king and discovered the conspiracy of the true demonic empire. He was rewarded with another 1,000 low-grade spiritual stones and 1,000 honor points of the sect. Furthermore, Ling Xiao was specially rewarded with the ability to accept missions from the sect permanently, making him equivalent to an inner disciple. In the end, Ling Xiao received 2,000 low-grade spiritual stones and 2,000 sect honor points from this mission. Honor points were also built into honor points. As mentioned before, honor points were more useful than low-grade spiritual stones. In the sect, they could be used to exchange for various martial arts manuals, weapons, and pills. When the honor points reached a certain level, one could also purchase sect honor weapons and even obtain some special benefits. For example, one could enter the sect's secret area to cultivate or receive personal guidance from some sect elders and so on. All in all, sect honor points were basically equivalent to privileges in the sect. If one accumulated enough honor points, even the sect elders wouldn't dare to touch them easily. Chapter 417. Ling Xiao was rewarded, which meant that the head of the law enforcement hall, Elder Jean, had already made the upper echelons of the sect somewhat dissatisfied. It was already fortunate that he did not lose the position of the head of the law enforcement hall. It was estimated that he would not pose any threat to Ling Xiao for the time being. This made Meng Yuan and the Flame Deities faction extremely depressed. They did not expect that this time He Sua was killed by Ling Xiao, and it was actually killed for nothing. The most outrageous thing was that Ling Xiao was actually rewarded with so many honor points. Those honor points were something that even the elite inner disciples were jealous of. Even Meng Yuan was a little jealous. After the flame deity received this news, he was so angry that he vomited blood. His injuries, which had already healed a lot, had once again relapsed. Bai Yin, hateful Bai Yin. He actually had such a disciple, and this sovereign actually did not discover it. Damn it, really damn it. The flame deity had long wanted to kill Ling Xiao. This time, Ling Xiao killing He Sua made his killing intent increase by a lot. Previously, it was only Meng Yuan who wanted to kill Ling Xiao to curry favor with the flame deity. However, this time, the flame deity personally gave Meng Yuan an order. Meng Yuan, kill Ling Xiao before Master recovers from his injuries, and Master will accept you as a disciple. The same treatment as Ming Tian. After receiving this order, Meng Yuan was extremely excited. At the same time, he began to plan how to kill Ling Xiao. At this time, Ling Xiao made another shocking decision. He reported to the sect, saying that he had something precious to hand over, but he had to personally hand it over to the sect leader. This was what Ling Xiao had planned long ago. He wanted to give the key to the true Devil Empire's treasure to the sect. That thing was of little value to him, but to the Yuehua school, it was definitely a treasure. There was another thing, the Plague Demon King's Devil Seal. This seal did not have any special effects. It was only a symbol of status. It was useless in Ling Xiao's hands. It was better to use it in exchange for some benefits. He believed that as long as he offered these two things, his position in the sect would be more stable, and it would be more difficult for the flame deity to kill him. Even if the head of the law enforcement hall wanted to find trouble with him, it would be very difficult. What's more, these two things would definitely be exchanged for a lot of the sect's honor. That day, the Yuehua School's headmaster finally appeared. This person was actually a beautiful woman. However, to Ling Zhao's disappointment, she was not the lady in blue he had met in the Dragon Submission mountain range. Yuehua Yuehua's Yuehua's Yuehua. Yuehua. Yuehua Yuehua's SS Yuehua Yuehua Yuehua's Yuehua. However, even though he was disappointed, he still had to do what he needed to do. Yuehua Yuehua deity S Yuehua elder Yuehua's Yuehua's use S as have a Yuehua Yuehua. Yuehua Yuehua Wanghan Tianzuan Yuehua 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 Medicine Hall's Yangdanlin, and so on. Basically, almost all the higher-ups of the Yuehua school were present. They had all heard from Ling Xiao that there were two treasures that would determine the rise and fall of the Yuehua school. How could the higher-ups of the sect not participate in such a matter? Ling Xiao, I've already shown myself. If you have anything to hand over, take it out. If it's really a treasure, I'll naturally reward you greatly. However, if it's just nonsense, don't blame me for punishing you. Yuehua School's headmaster Chang Yueying's voice was not loud, but it was absolutely majestic. This disciple understands. Ling Xiao did not waste any time. He just waved his hand, and a package appeared in his hand. He slowly opened the package and took out two things. One was a seal made from a supreme-grade spirit stone. The other was a jade token that did not look too special. Headmaster, I found these two things after killing the Pestilence Demon King. One of them is the Pestilence Demon King seal. This disciple felt that it was important, so I wanted to personally present it to you. While Ling Xiao was speaking, someone had already passed the item to Chang Yueying. Let's not talk about the jade tablet for now. The Pestilence Demon King's seal was too important. When the higher-ups heard about it, they all stood up and tried to see if the seal was real. That's right. This is indeed the Pestilence Demon King's seal. Chang Yueying solemnly announced, after carefully observing it for a while. It's actually real. The higher-ups felt their heartbeats suddenly accelerate. They had seen a lot of the world, but they had never seen what the Demon King's seal looked like. According to the sect's most secret records, the Demon King's seal actually contained the 9 martial souls of the 9 great Demon Kings. It was not only a symbol of status, but also a symbol of strength. For tens of thousands of years, in order to find the Demon King's seal, the 12 sects had almost turned the entire sky dragon continent upside down. However, it was a pity that the Demon King's seal also had spirituality. It would choose its own master. It was not something that could be owned by anyone who wanted it. Ling Xiao, does anyone else know about this Demon King's seal? Chang Yueying suddenly asked. Headmaster, this disciple did not leak this matter. The only ones who know about it are everyone present. Ling Xiao replied, Well done. You have made a great contribution by finding the Demon King's seal this time. Don't worry. I will definitely keep my word. After this matter is over, I will definitely give you a generous reward. Chang Yueying was so excited that she could not even maintain her normal state of mind. She knew better than anyone what the martial souls of the 9 great Demon Kings meant. Headmaster, don't you want to take a look at the other thing? Ling Xiao asked. Isn't this an ordinary jade token? Perhaps because Chang Yueying was too excited to see the Demon King seal, she neglected the jade token that was placed together with the Demon King seal. At this moment, she held the jade token in her hand and injected her soul force into it. However, she was inexplicably shocked. Headmaster, what exactly is that thing? Elder Jean hurriedly asked. After a long time, Chang Yueying calmed down and slowly said, Have you all heard of the martial soul inheritance of the true Devil Emperor? It can't be, Headmaster. This jade token is the martial soul inheritance of the true Devil Emperor? It was as if a sudden clap of thunder had exploded on the ground. Everyone was shaken to the point of dizziness. The martial soul inheritance of the 9 great Demon Kings was already very terrifying. What did the martial soul inheritance of the true devil emperor mean? That's not it. Chang Yueying shook her head and said, "This is one of the 9 keys to open the true devil kingdom's treasure. Rumor has it that the martial soul inheritance of the true devil emperor, as well as many martial arts manuals and divine weapons, are hidden inside. Its preciousness is probably 10 times greater than the Demon King's seal." Chang Yueying tried her best to calm her voice down, but it still carried a slight tremble, because she was too excited, so excited that she was unable to express her emotions normally. True Devil Kingdom's treasure, true Devil Emperor's inheritance. There were also countless martial arts manuals and divine weapons. All the upper echelons looked at each other in shock, because they were very clear on what this represented. Chapter 4:18. Back then, the true Demon Emperor had swept through the strongest of the 13 continents, the Sky Dragon continent. Even the Holy Lord of the human race, Ji Wu, was no match for him. It could be said that he was invincible. If it wasn't for the mysterious woman who made the true Demon Emperor disappear, the true Demon Empire would have already ruled the entire mystic world. How could the inheritances, martial arts, and weapons he left behind be ordinary? The current Sky Dragon continent had fallen from the strongest to the weakest among the 13 continents. The human race had also fallen from a first-class race to a 9th-class race. If the humans on the Sky Dragon continent were to obtain the true Demon Emperor's inheritance, what would happen? Perhaps the Sky Dragon continent could return to its former glory. Perhaps the human race could once again become a first-class race and enter the ranks of the top races. One had to know that a person's martial arts aptitude could be changed. This was something that had been proven long ago. One could use treasures to increase their strength, and they could also use special organs from other people's bodies to increase their strength. For example, the flame deity had taken master by Yun's wisdom bone, which allowed his martial arts aptitude to increase by a large margin. In addition, there was also the martial soul inheritance recorded in the 12 sects. Even the person with the worst aptitude could become a genius overnight if they obtained a powerful martial soul inheritance. Of course, the prerequisite was that the martial soul had to be completely integrated. Otherwise, they would be easily killed and taken away. Once the martial soul inheritance was completely integrated with the person's bloodline and soul, it would not be so easy to take it away. The higher-ups of the Yuehua school present were not fools. They understood the importance of this treasure. "Ling Xiao, you have done well. These 2 items are both rare treasures. According to the rules of the sect, as long as your request is not too excessive, the sect will agree to it. In addition, you will be rewarded with a large number of honor points." Chang Yueying calmed herself down and looked at Ling Xiao as she spoke slowly. Ever since she had taken over as the head of the Yuehua school, there was not a day that she did not think about how to strengthen the sect. There was not a day that she did not want to make the sect the strongest among the 12 sects. However, this was easier said than done. However, today, after obtaining the Devil King's seal and a key to the true Devil Empire's treasure, her confidence immediately increased. She felt that not only should Ling Xiao be greatly rewarded, but Ling Xiao's master in the secular world, Bai Yin, should also be greatly rewarded. As soon as she said that, all the higher-ups were envious. Some of them were inner sect elders, while others were hall masters and building masters. They were basically half-step heavenly venerates, or true heavenly venerates. However, they were still envious of Ling Xiao's contributions. Some people were even jealous of him. However, there was nothing much to say, because Ling Xiao's contribution was indeed too great. The true Devil Imperial Treasury might not be able to be used for the time being, but the Devil King's inheritance in the Devil King's seal could be used immediately. This was crucial to the improvement of Yuehua School's strength. This brat must be plotting something. Otherwise, why didn't he keep something as good as the Devil King's inheritance for himself? Elder Jean suddenly snorted and said, "According to the sect's rules, All the items obtained by disciples during missions belong to the disciple. Would he be so kind as to choose to hand them over? Grand Elder, I don't understand what you're saying. Ling Xiao said slowly, this disciple is loyal to Yuehua School. Is there anything wrong with giving the valuable items to Yuehua School? No, Wonder Grand Elder wanted to kill this disciple when we were in Green Valley. So it turns out that this disciple is too loyal to Yuehua School. Don't talk nonsense. Elder Jean shouted. Enough! Chang Yue-ing shouted. As the head of the law enforcement hall, you should pay attention to your words. Don't always target an outer sect disciple. Otherwise, the disciples will be disappointed. Regardless of whether Chang Yuying's words were intentionally directed at Elder Jean or if they were just pleasantries, the fact that she was able to say such words made Ling Xiao have a better impression of her. A sect leader who paid attention to the feelings of the disciples could not be too bad. In short, no matter what the reason is, Ling Xiao has made a great contribution. This is a fact. He must be rewarded greatly. This is the rule of the Yuehua School for tens of thousands of years. No one can change it without permission. It could be seen that Chang Yue-ing did not have a good relationship with the 5 law enforcement elders of the law enforcement hall. In fact, Chang Yue-ing knew that Ling Xiao most likely had his own selfish motives for handing over the 2 treasures. As the sect leader of the Yuehua School, she naturally knew about the conflict between Ling Xiao, He Suo, the flame deity, and even Elder Jean. This Ling Xiao used the 2 treasures to become a great contributor to the Yuehua School. This made Elder Jean and the others not dare to act rashly. Even as the sect leader, she had no choice but to side with this person. This kid's scheming was so deep that it made people have a whole new level of respect for him. This was not what a 14-year-old youth should have. It seemed that this kid had some kind of fortuitous encounter. Who knows, he might really become the pillar of the Yuehua School in the future. Perhaps it was time to nurture him properly. On the other hand, Elder Jean and the other elders who were on good terms with him did not look too good. They had been played by a kid who had not even grown out his hair. Who would feel good about this? Ling Xiao had made a great contribution this time, but their faction had lost He Suo. Moreover, Elder Jean had been reprimanded by the sect leader in public. This made them seethe with anger. Ling Xiao, according to the rules of the sect, you have made a great contribution. You will receive 10,000 low-grade spiritual stones, 1,000 mid-grade spiritual stones, and 20,000 honor points. Chang Yue-ing saw that Elder Jean did not say anything and announced, in addition, this sect leader will personally agree to 3 of your requests. As long as it is not too excessive, as long as the sect leader can do it, we will naturally help you. After the announcement of the rewards, the whole place was in an uproar. Those who had a good relationship with Ling Xiao were naturally very grateful and appreciative. As for those who hated Ling Xiao, their hearts were filled with jealousy. 10,000 low-grade spiritual stones was nothing, even if it was equivalent to a year's salary for a core disciple. 1,000 mid-grade spiritual stones was also nothing, even if it was equivalent to 100,000 low-grade spiritual stones, and no one was willing to exchange it. In fact, the most important rewards were the 20,000 honor points and the 3 requests. According to the rules of the sect, 100 honor points could enter the inner Moonlight Tower's wooden door once, 500 honor points could enter the iron door once, and 1,000 honor points could enter the jade door once. In other words, 1,000 honor points was equivalent to a gold grade top martial art. Ling Xiao had received 20,000 honor points. In addition to the previous 2,000, he had a total of 22,000 honor points, which was enough to obtain 22 sets of gold grade top martial arts. Of course, this was just a reference. Ling Xiao did not need so many martial arts. After all, a person's energy was limited. In terms of martial arts, it was enough to have enough. Chapter 419. Thank you for your reward, Sect Master. Ling Xiao wasn't an insatiable person. Chang Yuying's treatment of him This time was indeed very generous. Next, he had to consider 3 requests. Chang Yueying had made it very clear that as long as his request wasn't excessive and the sect could do it, they would agree. Of course, this was considered polite, so Luo Yinyang still had to consider it carefully. After pondering this for a while, Ling Xiao made a decision. Sect Master, my first request is that the Yuehua school can bestow upon my master, Master Baiyun, the status of an inner sect disciple. This had always been Master Baiyun's dream, his only wish before he died. The reason he wanted to nurture an outstanding disciple into the Yuehua school was that he hoped to contribute to the sect so that the sect could bestow upon him the status of an inner sect disciple again. Perhaps this was just an empty title for Ling Xiao, but it was a lifelong pursuit for Master Baiyun. Even though Ling Xiao and Master Baiyun had some unpleasant experiences in the past, Ling Xiao wouldn't be where he was today without Master Baiyun. Ling Xiao wasn't an ungrateful person like Ming Tian. Furthermore, Master Baiyun was guarding the divine sword sect for him. If he could fulfill Master Baiyun's wish, Master Baiyun would definitely do his best. Everyone was stunned when they heard Ling Xiao's request. Then, many of the higher-ups nodded their heads. Even though he's in the sect, he doesn't forget his master in the secular world. Based on his character, he isn't the kind of person who would betray his master. He can't be nurtured. If Heavenly Venerable Occult Flame was here, he would definitely object. Unfortunately, the flame deity was seriously injured and was still recuperating. Thus, he couldn't leave the volcano palace. This request is to repay a debt of gratitude. I agree to it. Chang Yueying nodded with a smile. Clearly, her impression of Ling Xiao had improved a lot. My second request is that the sect can release a Yuan Venerate. Ling Xiao had considered this request carefully. Actually, it wasn't too excessive. The suppression of a Yuan Venerate was entirely due to the law enforcement hall's bias towards the flame deity. In fact, the Yuan Venerate had never done anything detrimental to the Yuehua school. On the contrary, he was Yang Danlin's friend and could even help the Yuehua school at a critical moment. If he thought about it carefully, Yuehua school would not object to it. The Yuan Venerate is not related to you in any way. Why would you release him? Chang Yueying asked doubtfully. Sect Master, the Yuan Venerate is a friend of my benefactor, Old Hall Master Yang Danlin. I have also received his guidance in the past and have some achievements in array formations and alchemy. Therefore, he can be considered half a master to me. Thus, I sincerely request that the sect master release him. Ling Xiao replied, the Yuan Venerate and Old Hall Master Yang are close friends and have never done anything detrimental to the Yuehua school. He even helped Old Hall Master Yang develop many good pill formulas. He can be considered half a Yuehua school member. The law enforcement hall suppressed him because of the flame deity. I have always felt guilty and uneasy. After all, the incident with the flame deity had happened because of him. No, the Yuan Venerate must not be released. Elder Jean panicked once again. It would have been better if he hadn't said anything. Chang Yueying might have hesitated. However, his words made Chang Yueying make up her mind. Oh, what is the reason for the law enforcement hall's head to say this? He injured Mo Yen. How can he be released so easily? Elder Jean roared. To think that you are the law enforcement hall's head. Do you really think that I don't know anything about what happened that day? The reason I didn't interfere was because I didn't want to get into a conflict with the law enforcement hall. Chang Yueying's expression turned cold. Mo Yen actually disregarded his status as an inner sect elder and injured an outer sect disciple in Guanghan Hall. He almost killed the outer sect disciple. I won't pursue this matter. How dare you protect him? There were some things that the sect could only be happy if everyone turned a blind eye to. However, Chang Yueying wouldn't be careless if someone really wanted to take this matter seriously. Elder Jin's expression kept changing. In the end, he shut his mouth and didn't say anything else. Ling Xiao, I will also agree to your second request. I will release the Yuan Venerate today. Thank you, Sect Master, for being lenient with me. I pledge my loyalty to the Yuehua school and the Sect Master. Whether Ling Zhao's words were sincere or not, only he himself knew, but he was indeed grateful to Chang Yuing. Furthermore, after this incident, his resentment toward the Yuehua school wasn't that deep. This sect had many problems and many people who made people unhappy. However, there were also people like Yang Danlin, Wanghan Tianzuan, Heavenly Venerate Golden Light, Sect Master Chang Yueying, and many others who could be considered fair and just. Tell me your third request. Your first two requests were for the sake of others. You still have to consider this last request for your own sake. Chang Yueying reminded him kindly. Ling Xiao naturally had the same intention. Master Baiyun and the Yuan Venerate were both his masters. However, Master Baiyun was a master in the secular world. The Yuan Venerate was a master that couldn't be made public for the time being. The first two requests were for their sake, so Ling Xiao couldn't shirk his responsibility. However, he had to consider this last request for his own sake. Disciple's third request is that I hope to be able to acknowledge the sect master as my master. Ling Xiao said respectfully. In the mystic realm, there was no such thing as only having one master. There was a saying left behind by ancient sages. When three people walk together, they are bound to have a master. Therefore, for tens of thousands of years, people who truly achieved heaven-defying achievements often had more than one master. There was once a senior expert from the Yuehua school who had reached the Grotto Heaven realm. Before he passed away, he had acknowledged as many as 99 masters. The rest of the people had at least 3 or 4 masters. Of course, there was an unwritten rule here. Within the same sect, one could only acknowledge one master. Master Baiyun was considered a master in the secular world, so strictly speaking, he wasn't included. The Yuan Venerate wasn't a member of the Yuehua school, so this didn't affect him. Therefore, Ling Xiao was completely qualified and should find another senior expert of virtue and prestige to acknowledge as his master. In this way, even Elder Jean and Empyrean Demon Flame would definitely not dare to openly harm him. Now that he had completely displayed his impressive aptitude, he believed that it was not impossible for him to become the disciple of Headmaster Chang Yueying. Upon hearing Ling Zhao's request, Yang Danlin nodded repeatedly. Wang Han Tianzuan and Heavenly Venerate Golden Light looked at each other and smiled bitterly. In fact, both of them wanted to accept Ling Xiao as their disciple, but unfortunately their cultivation wasn't as good as Sect Master Chang Yueying's. This kid really knew how to choose his master. However, Elder Jean angrily rebuked. How dare you? A mere outer sect disciple actually made such an excessive request to acknowledge the sect master as his master. Do you know that even if you have a divine grade treasure body, even if you are one of the top 10 core disciples, none of them have been accepted as a disciple by the sect master. Who do you think you are? As he spoke, Elder Jean didn't hide his terrifying aura, trying to use this aura to suppress Ling Xiao and make Ling Xiao give up on this idea. Chapter 420. The meaning of Elder Jin's words to Ling Xiao was very clear. Even the sect master looked down on core disciples. You're just a mere outer disciple with a treasured body. You're just a piece of trash. How dare you make such a request? Whether I'm qualified or not, it's not up to Elder Jean to decide. If the sect master doesn't agree, then I won't pester him. Although I'm just an outer disciple, an ant-like existence, even ants have dignity. I'm not like some people who don't even care about their face. At this moment, Ling Xiao was no longer afraid of Elder Jin's aura. If it was the first time, he might have trembled and been injured. However, this was already the third time Elder Jean had used the same method to deal with him. The mountain river martial spirit had long been familiar with this kind of aura. In an instant, this aura was directly turned into nourishment and injected into Ling Zhao's soul, continuing to strengthen Ling Zhao's soul. You Elder Jean was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He didn't expect that in front of so many people, Ling Xiao would actually dare to contradict him. What made him feel the most strange was that his terrifying aura was actually unable to make Ling Xiao feel fear. This was the biggest problem. All right, head of the law enforcement hall. Since when did it become your turn to interfere in our sex matters? Could it be that you're tired of sitting in the law enforcement hall's head seat and want to come to our sect to be a steward? Chang Yuying's voice was filled with indifference. She was really disappointed in this law enforcement hall's head. However, this person's influence in the Yuehua school was very strong. It wasn't easy to get rid of him. Elder Jean had really shot himself in the foot. Perhaps his disgust for Ling Xiao was too strong, to the point that he actually lost his mind. Ling Xiao waited for Chang Yuying's reply. In any case, he was just testing the waters. If Chang Yuying agreed, then it would naturally be for the best. If she didn't agree, then this third request could be changed. He could take a step back and ask another intersect elder to be his master and learn martial arts. Therefore, this attempt was absolutely worth it. However, after Chang Yuying stopped Elder Jin's pressure on Ling Xiao, she fell into silence. Her face revealed a bit of sadness, as if she had fallen into deep thought. Ha ha ha, Ling Xiao. It's better if you acknowledge me as your master. I'll definitely pass on all my skills to you. It's not that the sect leader hates you. She really has some unspeakable difficulties, so she can't accept you as her disciple. In this extremely stifling atmosphere, Heavenly Lord Goldenlight's laughter was like a warm spring breeze, dissolving the stifling atmosphere. In fact, there was nothing wrong with having Ling Xiao take Golden Light, Heavenly Master, as his master. This person's personality was also something that Ling Xiao liked. However, Heavenly Lord Goldenlight could not suppress Elder Jean. This was something that Ling Xiao could also see, so he was still hesitating. Jean Guang, don't make things difficult for this child. Even if the headmaster can't accept him, I can. It won't be your turn. Wang Han Tianzuan said with a smile. If it's possible, I can also accept him as my disciple. The Desperation Tower's Tower Master suddenly spoke. You guys better not fight with me. When this kid entered the Intersex Moonlight Tower to choose martial arts, I discovered that his future is definitely not worse than those disciples with divine-grade treasure bodies. Let me have him. The Moonlight Tower's Tower Master also spoke. Do you old fellows of the inner sect want to compete with me for a disciple? He's now an outer sect disciple, and I'm also the hall master of the outer sect hall. Wouldn't it be great to accept him as a disciple? Heavenly Lord Wu Go was also anxious. The disciple that he had been cultivating couldn't be snatched away by others. For a time, there were actually 5 Heaven Realm experts who wanted to accept Ling Xiao as their disciple. This made many people who didn't know much about Ling Xiao shocked. You guys don't have to fight. Ling Xiao, from now on, you will follow the 5 supreme elders of our law enforcement hall to cultivate. Suddenly, Elder Jin's eyes flashed with a strange light, and then he said loudly, he might be afraid of Headmaster Chang Yuying, but he wasn't afraid of the others. Therefore, if he wanted to compete for a disciple, then no one could snatch it from him. Many thanks for Elder Jin's good intentions, but Ling Xiao doesn't plan on acknowledging someone I don't like as my master. Ling Xiao was very clear that if he said the sentence, it would completely become fire and water with Elder Jean. There was no possibility of reconciliation. However, he had no intention of easing up at all. The one who should be afraid and worried was not him, but Elder Jean. Although his current cultivation was inferior to Elder Jin's, he possessed the mountain river martial spirit and the ancient golden dragon's inheritance. His future was more than 1,000 times greater than Elder Jin's. Acknowledging Elder Jean as his master, he probably wouldn't be able to learn anything. Instead, he would be completely crippled. This point, as long as one had the slightest bit of brain, they would be able to understand. Well said. Suddenly, an ethereal voice sounded out in the great hall. This was a very pleasant woman's voice. Ling Xiao suddenly trembled with excitement. He recognized that this voice was the voice of that blue-clothed woman he saw back then in the Dragon Submitting Mountain Range. At that time, that woman had also said something that was still fresh in his memory. He, Chang Yueying, if you aren't willing to accept him as your disciple, why don't you give him to me? The voice was still ringing out, but no one came forward. Your Highness, Moon Maiden. Chang Yueying was so shocked that she stood up from her seat and hurriedly knelt on the ground. The other sect elders also knelt on the ground. Ling Xiao was dumbfounded. Who was this so-called Your Highness Moon Maiden? Why did even the sect leader have to kneel to her? Wasn't this too ridiculous? Get up, Chang Yueying. I know that you have been brooding over your husband's death and are determined to nurture your son with all your might. That's why you swore in front of your husband's grave that you wouldn't accept any more disciples. I understand that. So how about you give him to me? The voice spoke again. Your Highness Moon Maiden is willing to accept this child as your disciple. That's naturally his good fortune. However, do you really intend to accept him as your disciple? Didn't you say that you wanted to find a person with exceptional aptitude and nurture him into the future of Yuehua School? Chang Yueying asked, puzzled. Although Ling Xiao's aptitude was outstanding, it was definitely not exceptional. Her Highness Moon Maiden had been awake for more than 10,000 years and had seen countless geniuses. However, she had never taken a liking to any of them. What did this Ling Xiao do to deserve this? Chang Yueying was both confused and surprised. Not to mention her. Even Ling Xiao himself was confused. He had only met the Moon Maiden once. Even if he had performed outstandingly recently, if his Mountain River Martial Soul and Primordial Golden Dragon were excluded, he definitely wouldn't be considered a top-notch talent. Why did this Moon Maiden want to accept him as her disciple? After the initial excitement, Ling Xiao regained his calm. He began to consider if he should accept this Moon Maiden as his master. It was clear that this person's position in the Yuehua School was probably higher than Chang Yueying. If he could become her disciple, not only would he be able to fulfill Ling Xiao's original plan, he would also be able to obtain more benefits. Chapter 421. You people are really neglecting the essentials and focusing on the details. The Moon Maiden's voice sounded again. A person's aptitude isn't determined by cold data or the results of a test, but by the process of their development. Novel. After a pause, she continued. I'm afraid you don't know this, but I've met this child Ling Xiao once. I could tell that this child had his own opportunities. I didn't expect to meet him again in just a few months at the Yuehua School. This is probably fate. Ling Xiao, are you willing to be my disciple? The Moon Maiden asked. Disciple is naturally willing, but I'm afraid your Highness has other conditions for accepting a disciple, right? Ling Xiao asked. You're really smart, kid. The Moon Maiden said with a smile. That's right. If you want to be my disciple, you still have to do something. Otherwise, there's still no hope. When the higher-ups heard this, they immediately understood. How could it be so easy for the Moon Maiden to accept a disciple? If there were no conditions, how could it be possible? Please speak, Your Highness. Disciple is listening. When Ling Xiao heard this, he felt relieved. Actually, my conditions are both simple and difficult. You just have to get first place in the Moon Arrival Pagoda Ascension Ceremony, and you'll be considered qualified. The Moon Maiden's words were very casual. However, when the higher-ups heard this, they felt that it was a little difficult for Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao was only at the early stage of the Transcendent Realm Level 3. With his powerful combat strength, he might be able to complete the Moon Tower Ascension ceremony. However, it was impossible for him to get first place. The Moon Maiden was simply making things difficult for him. Yang Danlin and Wang Han Tianzuan's expressions didn't look too good. On the other hand, Elder Jean and the others were overjoyed. It turned out that the Moon Maiden was just toying with Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao, I won't force you. You have the right to choose. You can get first place in the Moon Tower Ascension ceremony and become my disciple, or you can choose one of the other inner sect elders. The Moon Lady's voice sounded again. I can give you 3 days to think about it. Go back and think about it carefully. You can also discuss it with your good friends. Don't make a hasty decision. Your Highness, the Moon Maiden, there's no need to consider. This disciple is willing to take your Highness, the Moon Maiden, as his master. Furthermore, this disciple will definitely take first place in the Moon Arrival Pagoda Ascension ceremony. Ling Xiao stood up, his eyes filled with confidence. Starting from the Ling family, his journey could be said to be very bumpy, but no matter how difficult it was, he resolutely walked through it. No matter how impossible it was for others, he would persist in doing it and strive to succeed. Perhaps he would fail, but in life, if he didn't even have the courage to try, then he shouldn't even dream of becoming a hero. He should just obediently be an ordinary disciple. Arrogant. You overestimate yourself. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Impulsive. As soon as Ling Xiao's decision was made, the higher-ups had already defined him in their hearts. Even Yang Danlin and Wang Han Tianzuan shook their heads and sighed. How could this child be so stubborn? Haha, I'm not surprised at all by your answer. The Moon Lady chuckled. When I saw you in the Dragon Submission Mountain Range, you seemed to be chased by a peak level 8 demonic beast. At that time, your cultivation was only at the 4th or 5th level of the Martial Vein Realm. But you actually managed to escape death and even obtained a rare opportunity. You seem to be impulsive, but you're actually very meticulous. Your Highness Moon Lady is too kind. If you didn't save me that day, how could I have survived? Your saving grace is still fresh in my mind. Ling Xiao cupped his hands and said, It's just a small matter. Don't worry about it. Anyway, you and I are fated. When you get first place in the Pagoda Ascension ceremony, I'll naturally appear to meet you. At that time, you can formally become my disciple. The Moon Lady smiled. Well, by the way, I'll remind everyone here that I've taken a liking to this child. If he's plotted against before he becomes my disciple, don't blame me for being impolite. You guys can chat, I won't disturb you. After saying that, the voice completely disappeared. Farewell, Your Highness Moon Lady. Chang Yueying and the others finally stood up. She looked at Ling Xiao and sighed. I can't accept you as my disciple, but I didn't expect you to have such a great opportunity. In that case, go back and seize the time to cultivate. The Moon Arrival Festival is not far away. If you want to get first place while being chased by the inner disciples, it's definitely not going to be easy. I know, but I'll work hard. Ling Xiao nodded. As long as you work hard. Chang Yueying smiled. Perhaps it was because of the Moon Lady's appearance that she really looked at Ling Xiao in a new light. This kid might really have something special. Otherwise, with how picky the Moon Lady was, how could she possibly take a liking to this kid? Ling Xiao also sighed in his heart. Originally, he only wanted to become the disciple of the Yuehua School's head teacher to resist the pressure from Elder Jean, the Flame Deity, and the others. He didn't expect the Moon Lady to appear out of nowhere. And this Moon Lady status was obviously higher than the Yuehua School's head teacher. If he could become her disciple, the effect would definitely be better. Although it was unexpected, it didn't go beyond his plan. Everything was going according to his plan in an orderly manner, and it seemed to be even more perfect than the previous plan. What a lucky bastard! He actually managed to find such a powerful backer. Elder Jin's heart was very depressed. He felt that if he wanted to deal with Ling Xiao next, it would really become very troublesome. If it was the head teacher, Chang Yueying, he could still resist a little. But this Moon Lady's status was respected. Neither he nor Chang Yueying could afford to offend her. Once this kid succeeded in becoming her disciple, it would be troublesome. However, even if he didn't become her disciple now, with the words left behind by the Moon Lady, if he wanted to find fault with Ling Xiao in the future, he really couldn't be as obvious as before. Otherwise, if the Moon Lady was angry, no one would be able to save him. At this moment, Ling Xiao was very happy in his heart. Master Baiyin wanted him to become an inner sect disciple as soon as possible. This way, he could get the attention of the sect and raise his status as much as possible so that he wouldn't be bullied. Although he didn't become an inner sect disciple, he was an outer sect disciple who received more attention than most inner sect disciples. Master Baiyin even wanted him to find a backer to fight against the flame deity. He found Yang Danlin, Wang Han Tianzuan, the Moon Lady, and more than one backer. This power was actually vaguely stronger than the flame deity. Even Elder Jean started to be afraid of him. In the next few days, Chang Yueying kept her promise to Ling Xiao. She personally sent someone to inform Master Baiyun and engraved his name in the list of inner sect disciples. This was actually a trivial matter, at least to her. But Master Baiyun, who was far away in Tianfeng City, knelt on the ground and cried for a full 2 hours. Chapter 4:22. For the past few days, Master Baiyun had been cultivating with a large amount of resources that Ling Xiao had plundered. In addition to the spiritual pills and elixirs that Ling Xiao had obtained from the dead Sword King's sect disciples, as well as the gold-grade entry-level martial arts, his cultivation, which had stagnated for many years, had finally broken through. Perhaps it was because of his many years of accumulation, but after he broke through, he was unable to stop himself. He directly went from peak Transcendent Realm First Layer to early Transcendent Realm Third Layer before finally stopping. Originally, he could have returned to Yuehua School at this time, but he didn't, because he knew that everything he had was given to him by Ling Xiao. He wanted to protect the divine sword sect for Ling Xiao. Of course, there was another reason. Ling Xiao, this fellow, was too mysterious. Gold-grade entry-level martial arts and rare-grade martial arts were actually given to the divine sword sect as if they were free. In addition, there was also a large amount of gold and silver that could be used to buy cultivation materials. Whether he returned to Yuehua School or not, it really didn't make a difference. As long as he had that status, he was satisfied. The other disciples of the divine sword sect also obtained a lot of benefits during this time. Ling Xiaotian, Ling Wuheng, and Ling Yihong broke through to Transcendent Realm First Layer one after another and became Transcendent Realm cultivators admired by the world. Ling Shuang, Ling Zhan, Ling Chen, Ling Yin, and the others also cultivated to the peak of Martial Vein Realm 9th Layer 1 after another. Ling Zhao's younger brother Ling Luo was now a Martial Vein Realm 8th Layer cultivator. He was no longer the little radish head that could be bullied by others. Inside the divine sword sect, the strength of the disciples had increased to different degrees. At this moment, besides the 12 sects, the divine sword sect already had the feeling of being the #1 sect in the world. All of this was thanks to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's golden statue was placed in the sect square. It was more than 10 meters tall and looked very spectacular. All the disciples who joined the divine sword sect would be taught about Ling Xiao's legend. Of course, these things were taken care of by Master Baiyun and the others. Ling Xiao didn't have to worry too much about it. The key for him now was to constantly improve his cultivation and status. That way, the divine sword sect would continue to grow stronger. Master Baiyun was granted the status of an inner disciple of Yuehua School. Yuan Venerates were also successfully released from the Moonlight Pagoda. When the master and disciple met, they naturally sighed again. The Yuan Venerate had never imagined that his disciple would actually be able to rescue him using such a method. He immediately felt emotional. Not only did he not blame Ling Xiao for taking the Moon Maiden as his master, but he was also very supportive. After all, he wasn't a member of the Yuehua School, nor was he an enemy of the Yuehua School. Therefore, there was no conflict of interest between him and the Moon Lady. Of course, more importantly, he only hoped that his disciples could become stronger and more promising. The more things they could learn, the better. He didn't have that much prejudice. After meeting the Yuan Venerate, Ling Xiao planned to use the rewards he had received this time to concentrate on his cultivation. After all, his current cultivation was only at the early stage of the Transcendent Realm 3rd level. If he relied on his current cultivation to participate in the Moon Arrival Day Tower Ascension ceremony, he was afraid that the outcome would not be good. Strength was always the most important thing. Whether it was completing sect missions or participating in trials, it was all the same. However, just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by the Yuan Venerate. "Wait a moment, Master has something to say to you." While Ling Xiao and the Yuan Venerate were talking, something extremely strange happened in Green Valley. During the few days he had been back at the sect, Green Valley had practically become a gathering place for the disciples of the 12 sects. These people had all arrived there to search for the treasures left behind by the Plague Demon King. However, after a few days, nothing was found. Then, something terrible happened today. Over 100 disciples of the 12 sects and other small sects had mysteriously disappeared into a forest deep in Green Valley. This forest had been called the 1,000 Ghost Forest by the people of Green Valley. It was connected to the Dragon Submission Mountain Range. To be precise, it was a part of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range. The reason for this name was that there had once been people from Green Valley who had mistakenly entered this place. In the end, over 100 people had entered, but only one person had returned alive. It was said that he had seen countless ghosts and monsters. Hence, this name had come about. Furthermore, this place had been designated as a forbidden area by Green Valley, and martialists and hunters were not allowed to enter. However, why would the disciples of the 12 sects listen to them? In the end, something like this had happened. After this incident, the various large sects had announced that their disciples were forbidden from entering the 1,000 Ghost Forest. Unfortunately, it was already a little too late. In the depths of the 1,000 Ghost Forest, strange cries were constantly heard, as if evil spirits were demanding lives. If someone entered this place, they would definitely discover that the corpses of the disciples had been placed in a steeple. On the ground, there was a faint, strange pattern that was faintly discernible. When this pattern lit up, the true yuan and blood of these disciples would flow in the same direction. What was lying there was actually a huge, jet-black tiger with 3 heads. It was 5 to 6 meters tall and 7 to 8 meters long. It constantly emitted an extremely dangerous aura. This aura was even more terrifying than that of the Yuehua school's head teacher. One had to know that among the hundreds of disciples, the weakest one was at least at the Transcendent Realm 1st layer. At this moment, they had all become nourishment for this 3-headed tiger monster. That idiot Pestilence, his cultivation has only recovered a little. Yet he still dares to cause such a big commotion. This king has really benefited. This 3-headed tiger monster actually spoke in a voice that only humans could have. If the Pestilence Demon King hadn't died, he would have discovered that although this guy's appearance had changed, his aura was definitely that of one of the 9 great demon kings, the evil beast demon king. But don't worry, when this king's strength recovers, this king will definitely kill that Ling Xiao and avenge you. The evil beast demon king licked his lips, and a sinister smile appeared on his 3 tiger heads. Although he didn't care that the Pestilence Demon King had been killed, he was still his former companion. Now that he had been killed by an outer disciple of the Yuehua school, even if it was purely for the sake of face, he wouldn't spare Ling Xiao. According to the legends of Green Valley, the forest of 1,000 ghosts should have been haunted 1,000 years ago. If this legend was true, then the evil beast demon king had probably stayed in the forest of 1,000 ghosts for over 1,000 years. These demons, who came from an unknown place, had a much longer lifespan than humans. It wouldn't be strange if they didn't die in 10,000 or even 10,000 years, let alone 1,000 years. Of course, Ling Xiao, who was in the Yuehua school, didn't know about the evil beast demon king. He was currently considering the suggestion of his master, Yuan Venerate, go to the forest of 1,000 ghosts. The Moon Arrival Festival isn't far away. If you stay in the sect and cultivate, your improvement will be limited. Therefore, I suggest that you leave the Yuehua school and head to the forest of 1,000 ghosts to seek greater opportunities. Chapter 4:23. The night was as dark as ink. A crescent moon floated in the night sky like a lonely little boat. The cold moonlight shone lazily on the ground. In the quiet wilderness, a pair of bonfires were burning. The flames danced continuously, as if they were performing a fiery dance for their owner. Next to the bonfire, a dog was lying there, sleeping lazily. Next to it was a young man. The young man was wiping the treasured sword in his hand and humming a tune in boredom. Ling Xiao finally agreed to his master's suggestion. Man and dog left the Yuehua school quietly and headed for the 1,000 Ghost Forest. There was too little time left before the Moon Arrival Festival, so it was very difficult for Ling Xiao to achieve a breakthrough in such a short time using ordinary methods. Thus, Ling Xiao agreed to his master's suggestion to train in the 1,000 Ghost Forest. Master, wouldn't it be safer to enter the 1,000 Ghost Forest from the Green Valley? Why do we have to cross the Dragon Submission Mountain Range? Wouldn't it be much more dangerous this way? Ling Xiao asked casually as he put away the ice dragon sword in his hand and started wiping it with another sword. That's right. Master wants you to experience some danger. The dog beside him still had its eyes closed, but a human voice came out of its mouth. I think you should have realized that the more dangerous the situation, the faster your potential will erupt. Therefore, if you want to raise your cultivation base to the Transcendent Level 4, or even the Transcendent Level 5 in a short time, you'll have to kill your way through all the dire beasts in the Dragon Submission Mountain Range. Ling Xiao finally understood the purpose of his Yuan Venerate Master. Although the 1,000 Ghost Forest was their target this time, the demonic beasts and dire beasts in the Dragon Submission Mountain Range were the key. Although killing their way through might be very tiring, it would definitely be much better than staying in the sect. In any case, his master was around, so he wouldn't have to worry even if he really encountered dire beasts that he couldn't handle. Thus, he only needed to focus on tempering his martial techniques and raising his cultivation base. That would be enough. It was true that the Dragon Submission Mountain Range was dangerous, but the spirit energy there was more abundant than in the sect. Even if he just sat there and cultivated, his speed would be much faster than in the sect. At this thought, Ling Xiao suddenly smiled and asked, Master, I remember you saying that you would impart a very powerful martial technique to me after leaving the Yuehua school. Is that right? That's right. However, I have to first understand your fighting style and choose a martial technique based on your characteristics. Don't worry, Master. Master isn't stingy. The martial technique I will impart will definitely be a top-notch gold-grade martial technique. The Yuan Venerate did not deny it. You don't have to rush. You already have a lot of attacking methods. You should know that you shouldn't bite off more than you can chew. If Master wants to teach you martial skills, then I will definitely teach you the martial skills that you need the most right now. Also, Master will give you a suggestion. In the future, even if you fight barehanded, you should use chi swords to fight. There is no need to learn any fist techniques or finger techniques. Disciple understands. Ling Xiao had actually been thinking about it recently. It was the easiest way to develop to the top by focusing on one direction. Martial techniques were different from potential. It was impossible to develop them in all aspects. Even if Ling Xiao had enough energy, did he really have to familiarize himself with all the 18 different types of weapons? Since he had chosen the sword as his weapon, he would resolutely walk down the path of the sword and persevere. Even if he had to fight barehanded, there were other types of martial techniques. There was no need to learn fist techniques. Of course, the martial techniques of the dragon race and the spirit race were special cases and couldn't be lumped together. Hence, he still had to learn them. How about this? Since you're in such a hurry, I'll first teach you a set of 9 veins chi sword. A martial artist has 9 martial veins, and each martial vein can condense into a chi sword. Of course, The power varies from person to person, but the most frightening part of this set of sword techniques is that it uses Zhen Yuan to condense qi swords. The different Zhen Yuan attributes, the qi sword attributes, will also change accordingly. When he saw that Ling Xiao had accepted his suggestion, Yuan Venerate seemed relieved. Originally, he hadn't intended to impart this martial technique to Ling Xiao in such a hurry. However, he had changed his mind now. This set of martial techniques is considered a top-notch gold-grade sword technique. It is best used in close-range or mid-range combat. It is known for its sharp and sudden attack power. When cultivated to perfection, it can produce 9 qi swords at once. Its power is comparable to an entry-level jade, grade, martial technique. Ling Xiao was very excited when he heard this. He hadn't been a disciple of Yuan Venerate for long. Previously, he had only learned how to refine arrays from Yuan Venerate. However, this time he had obtained a top-notch gold-grade martial technique. It seemed like Yuan Venerate had completely trusted him and treated him as a true disciple because of his rescue. There are 2 ways to use the qi swords. One is similar to a finger technique. The maximum range of the qi swords can reach about 10 meters. The other way is to condense qi swords and use them to battle. The length of the qi swords is up to the user. It can even be used to execute other sword techniques. Although it doesn't have the additional effect of a weapon, it has the advantage of being able to retract and release it freely and is more flexible. Yuan Venerate added, "The most amazing thing is that the qi swords can be continuously strengthened. They won't be eliminated as quickly as weapons. Furthermore, many martial techniques won't be unusable due to conflicting attributes." "Master, can spirit power be integrated into the qi swords?" Ling Xiao asked. "Why do you think so?" Yuan Venerate looked at Ling Xiao doubtfully. "Perhaps, but no one has ever tried it before. You can give it a try, but I don't know if you will succeed." "All right." Ling Xiao intended to use the 9 Meridian Qi sword to replace the Divine Incarcerate King Fist. The Divine Incarcerate King Fist had helped him a lot along the way. Unfortunately, his cultivation had advanced too quickly, so the Divine Incarcerate King Fist, a gold-grade entry-level martial technique, clearly couldn't keep up with the increase in his strength. The usage of the qi swords might be more varied than one could imagine. Yuan Venerates only possessed this martial technique and didn't delve too deeply into it. However, Ling Xiao was different. Whenever this fellow obtained a martial technique, he would definitely try to modify it and make it more suitable for himself. "Come over here. Master will impart the incantation for the 9 Meridian Qi sword to you first. You can slowly cultivate it first. You can also continuously improve through battles with dire beasts when you enter the depths of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range." The incantation for the 9 Meridian Qi sword wasn't long. It only had 9 sentences. Actually, the shorter the incantation, the more troublesome it was, as most of the things had to be comprehended by oneself. "All right, I'm going to sleep first. Wake me up when you've condensed a qi sword." Yuan Venerate still couldn't stay awake for a long time. He was already exhausted after just saying a few sentences. Although he didn't like this state, there was nothing he could do about it. Who asked him to be so severely injured? However, he had just closed his eyes when he was woken up by Ling Xiao. Chapter 4:24. "What the hell are you doing, kid?" Master just closed his eyes. The Yuan Venerate was helpless. Why didn't this disciple know how to dote on others? "Master, you can't blame me for this. You said that I would wake you up as soon as I condensed the first qi sword." Ling Xiao said aggrievedly. "What the hell?" The Yuan Venerate jumped up. "Could it be that Master has been asleep for 2 hours?" "No, Master. You have been asleep for less than a second." Ling Xiao replied. "I have some experience in this area because I have cultivated a gold-grade martial art before. That's why I can cultivate so quickly. You are indeed a monster." The Yuan Venerate smiled bitterly, feeling a little disappointed. "All right, Since you have already condensed the first chi sword, demonstrate it for Master. Yes, Master. Ling Xiao closed his eyes slowly. After all, he had just comprehended it, so it was obvious that he wasn't familiar enough with the 9 meridian chi sword and would need a longer time to condense the chi sword. Only the bonfire and the chirping of insects could be heard in the silent wilderness. After about 10 seconds, Ling Xiao suddenly opened his eyes and pointed a finger at a towering tree in front of him. 9 meridian chi sword. Whoosh! Uft! An almost completely transparent chi sword shot out from his finger and extended nearly 10 meters in an instant. The towering tree was easily pierced through as if it was tofu, leaving behind a sharp sword mark. Buzz! A moment later, a strange sound was heard. The sword mark, which didn't seem very big, actually split into dozens of lines in all directions. Kacha! The towering tree, which required more than 10 people to wrap their arms around it, started to sway. What was that just now? The Yuan Venerate asked Ling Xiao in shock. The 9 meridian chi sword could only produce the first effect and not the second. Disciple integrated his spirit power into it and produced this special effect. Ling Xiao scratched his head. Sai, what should I say about you? Should I say that you're a genius or that you're a freak? The Yuan Venerate smiled bitterly. Although you are still somewhat unfamiliar with the process of condensing the chi sword, it doesn't matter. You will be able to use it proficiently very soon if you continue to practice. Next, try using it as a sword. Yes. Ling Xiao condensed an energy sword once again. This time he was clearly much more proficient than before, which stunned the Yuan Venerates. He had also seen many geniuses, but he had simply never encountered someone like Ling Xiao. Success! This time, Ling Xiao only used a breath of time to successfully condense the chi sword. Cut that tree open! Yuan Venerate pointed at the tree that was already on the verge of collapsing. Ling Xiao nodded and controlled the chi sword to a range of 4 to 5 meters. He then lightly swung his right hand and used his basic sword skill. The chi sword was like a divine weapon as it directly cut apart the towering tree. Good. Master introduces the door, but cultivation depends on the individual. Your comprehension ability is really good, so Master really has nothing to nitpick about. Just continue cultivating like this. You will definitely be able to bring the 9 meridian chi sword to greater heights. The Yuan Venerate had originally wanted to see if there were any shortcomings in Ling Xiao's technique and give him some pointers. However, after watching Ling Xiao's demonstration, he decided to forget about it. This fellow was simply a model of self-taught. Not only did he have an outstanding grasp of the 9 meridian chi sword, but the most ridiculous thing was that he was actually able to draw inferences about other things and create new ways to use it. It seemed that this master of his had really picked up a treasure. But why did he feel so helpless? Master, do you think the chi sword can be used like this? As he was thinking about this, the Yuan Venerate saw another shocking scene. Ling Xiao actually turned the originally straight chi sword into a soft, whip-like sword. It was clearly stabbing forward, but it suddenly stabbed out from behind. This was also not mentioned in the original chant. Master, can the chi sword be used like this? Ling Xiao had invented a new way to use it. The chi sword completely enveloped his right fist as if he was wearing a special boxing glove. The chi sword had actually turned into a defensive martial technique in an instant. Once one understood, all would be understood. Ling Xiao continuously changed the chi sword into various shapes. Sometimes it turned into a shield, sometimes it turned into a wild beast, and sometimes it even turned into a beautiful flower to make a lady happy. Although many of the variations weren't very useful in actual combat, some of them were simply classic ideas that were really wonderful when used in actual combat. It seems like Master doesn't have to worry about your comprehension of martial techniques. The next key is to increase your cultivation and quintessential origin energy. When we enter the depths of the Dragon Submission mountain range, Master will think of a way to help you find some rare materials for refining spirit pills. The Yuan Venerate finally understood that Ling Zhao's comprehension of martial techniques was the most outstanding he had ever seen. So he didn't have to worry. The key was still to increase his cultivation. As for your cultivation, even though your aptitude is very outstanding, appropriate elixir pills are also necessary. At the same time, you should continue to improve your alchemy skills. I believe that the core disciples of the sect, as well as geniuses like Lang Hao and Ming Tian, will all receive a lot of elixir pills from their master, right? Ling Xiao pondered this for a moment. Of course, but they will at most look for Old Yang to refine elixir pills. However, don't forget that Old Yang's alchemy skills were also taught by me. Given his aptitude, it would already be pretty good if he could learn a drop in the ocean from me, the Yuan Venerate said confidently. Even though Master's strength has yet to recover, in terms of alchemy and array formation techniques, there are probably no more than 10 people in the entire mystic world who can match Master in terms of alchemy skills and array formation techniques. When he spoke, there was a kind of arrogance in his bones that originated from his past. Ling Xiao wasn't very clear about the Yuan Venerate's past, but he firmly believed that the Yuan Venerate wasn't speaking nonsense. Some arrogance really wasn't something that could be faked. To be honest, he was becoming more and more interested in his master's identity. Unfortunately, his master had only said that he would find out in the future and didn't mention it again. Also, from now on, keep this array formation stone on you. No matter what you do, don't take it off until the Tower Ascension ceremony begins. The Yuan Venerate suddenly moved his claws and took out a piece of array formation stone from the storage ring hanging around his neck. This array formation stone was purplish-black and had many strange inscriptions and patterns on it. It was very obvious that this thing had already been integrated into some sort of array formation. Ling Xiao reached out to take the array formation stone. However, his arms suddenly sank and he was shocked. This small piece of array formation stone actually weighed close to 1,000 kilograms. The miraculous thing about the art of refining formations was that it could achieve different effects through different materials. Chapter 4:25. The weight of the alchemy formation stone was about 2,000 kilos. Even with all of Ling Zhao's current strength, he could only lift about 2,500 kilograms. Although he could definitely lift this thing, the feeling of heaviness was still very obvious. Strangely, this thing didn't cause any damage to his clothes when he put it in his pocket. This was probably due to the formation array on it. Master, I can't even walk with this thing. How can I fight? Ling Xiao couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. My good disciple, I know that there is a special power in your body. Furthermore, your quintessential origin energy is too vigorous. Therefore, you will often use this power involuntarily during battle. This isn't a bad thing, but it isn't very beneficial for honing your martial techniques, the Yuan Venerate said seriously. Master, do you mean that I won't be able to use all my quintessential origin energy with this thing? That's right. This alchemy formation stone has a special sealing formation array that can greatly suppress quintessential origin energy, spirit power, and other special powers. You only need to conserve quintessential origin energy that is equivalent to your cultivation base. The Yuan Venerate nodded. After training for a period of time, you will be shocked when you remove the alchemy formation stone. Furthermore, doing this will also be very helpful for your cultivation of the 9 Meridian Aura Sword, the 12 Golden Lotus Arts, and the Sky Dragon Golden Body. I understand, Master. Ling Xiao wasn't stupid. He understood the Yuan Venerate's reason for doing this. If he only relied on quintessential origin energy to win during battle, then the improvement of his martial techniques would be very limited. Furthermore, his thirst for quintessential origin energy would weaken, which would definitely affect his cultivation. Although this seemed like a small problem, it actually had far-reaching effects. This was the advantage of experience. Even if Ling Xiao had the mountain river martial soul, he wouldn't be able to make up for it. He would have to learn from others. This was a desert. Many places had already turned into sand. No one knew when it would turn into a desert. The scorching sun was like fire, scorching the earth relentlessly. The sand on the ground was almost boiling hot. If corn was thrown on the sand, it would turn into popcorn in an instant. Some people were sitting lazily in the shade, drinking water in big mouthfuls. In such terrible weather, no one was willing to continue their journey. On the contrary, it was more comfortable at night. Look over there. Someone seems to be coming. How is that possible? Which lunatic would travel in this weather? The person who spoke quickly widened his eyes. Not far away, the figure of a young man appeared on the sandy road. There was a dog lying on the young man's shoulder. It was as if the heat had nothing to do with the dog. It didn't even stick out its tongue. That youth, on the other hand, clearly had nothing on him except for a thin, long robe. But when he walked, it was as if he was carrying a mountain. Every step he took, the ground would sink into a deep pit. Even though it was soft sand, it wouldn't be that bad even if he was carrying 100 kilograms of weight. Let's take a rest in front. Ling Xiao finally heard his master's voice. He felt as if he had heard the sound of nature. It was too terrifying. He had to carry 2,000 jin of things on his back, and he couldn't use too much of his true essence. This method of traveling made him suffer unspeakably. Fortunately, he had already built a good foundation when he was at the martial vein realm, and his body was as strong as a ferocious beast's. Otherwise, an ordinary person would have been unable to move. Bring me 3 jugs of water. Walking to a shady area, Ling Xiao shouted at the person who was buying water. This was still the edge of the Dragon Submission mountain range, so there were still people living there. Water is here. When 3 jugs of water were brought over, Ling Xiao gulped down 1 jug of water and then poured the other jug of water over him from head to toe. The feeling was really great. However, it was too extravagant. At least, that was how it looked to others. Because there was a shortage of water here, a jug of water was worth 1 tael of silver. Ordinary people would be heartbroken to buy a jug of water, so Ling Xiao was simply wasting it. The 3rd jug of water was left for the Yuan Venerate to enjoy. After drinking a few mouthfuls, the Yuan Venerate jumped into the jug. Ling Xiao simply forked out some more silver to buy the jug. Otherwise, the Yuan Venerate wouldn't be able to buy it. How do you feel, disciple? The Yuan Venerate asked through voice transmission instead of speaking directly. After all, there were many people here. While the martialists of the sects might not find it strange that a dog could talk, it was still very easy for ordinary people to gather around and watch. I can only say that the effects of this array refining stone are too terrifying. After carrying it, I feel as if most of the true origin energy, spirit power, and other energies in my body have been cut off. Even the circulation of true origin energy at the early stage of the transcendent realm has become sluggish. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly and said, "Furthermore, it's really tiring to carry 2,000 kilograms of things like this. A journey that originally took 2 hours now takes 4 hours. How long will it take to reach the depths of the Dragon Submission mountain range? You are obviously quite smart, kid. Why haven't you figured it out yet? This is a form of cultivation. Just wait and see. After persevering for a month, I can guarantee that your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds," the Yuan Venerate said with a smile. "If you want to improve your cultivation in a short period of time, you have to endure hardships. This is only the beginning." "I'm not afraid of enduring hardships. Master, if you have any ideas, please let me know." Ling Xiao grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth. He had endured a lot of hardships ever since he had become sensible, especially when he had been a beggar. What was this little bit of hardships compared to the past? It was simply heaven. "Let me know when you get used to the weight of 1,000 kilograms. This weight can still be adjusted," the Yuan Venerate suddenly reminded him. "I understand. Actually," Ling Xiao had made some new gains during this 4-hour journey. The golden dragon cells in his body had already awakened to 40, and he had gained another 10. Ordinary martialists who reached the 3rd level of the transcendent realm basically had a strength in the range of 500 to 1,500 kilograms. The key was that different cultivation paths led to different amounts of strength. However, Ling Xiao's current strength had already reached 6,000 kilograms, which was double the strength of the strongest ordinary martialist. He hadn't told his master, the Yuan Venerate, about this, but the benefits of the Yuan Venerate's cultivation method had already manifested. During his break, Ling Xiao ate the low-grade true elemental pills like they were beans. This sort of thing, which was considered a precious treasure in the secular world, was something he could get easily. He had been so happy when he had first obtained a low-grade true elemental pill from Master Baiyun. Now he could use it without hesitation. Chapter 4:26. Many people were looking at Ling Xiao, including Marshal Vane, grade martialists. However, he didn't care. He even hoped that someone would come looking for trouble with him. He really wanted to see what kind of results he could achieve in a real battle after suppressing most of his true origin and other energies. Martialists always had a desire for battle in their bones. It was just that many people weren't willing to admit it. Unfortunately, these people didn't seem to realize that he was eating a low-grade true origin pill. They probably really thought he was eating beans. Ling Xiao, who had swallowed the low-grade true essence pill, sensed something different. Logically speaking, a low-grade true origin pill wouldn't have any effect on a 3rd-level transcendent realm martialist. It would only replenish his true origin. However, what surprised him was that his muscles were already exhausted and his true origin was almost completely depleted. As the low-grade true elemental Dan entered his abdomen, in the blink of an eye, the medicinal efficacy was completely absorbed by his dried-up body. It felt like he was splashing water on dry ground. Not only did his cultivation improve, but even his body felt like it had been tempered. His sky dragon golden body, which had been stagnant, actually showed signs of loosening up. Interesting. Ling Xiao smiled delightedly. A Yuan Venerate was indeed a master and a powerhouse. This cultivation method that was tailor-made for him was really extraordinary. Master, let's continue. Yes, the last inhabited place at the edge of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range should be up ahead. It's called Sha Castle. Ling Xiao nodded and slowly stood up. Compared to before, he felt that it was much easier to walk now. Even though Ling Xiao couldn't use the Cloud Dragon Divine Travel because he had the Array Refining Stone with him, his speed was still much faster than ordinary martialists. When the blazing sun turned into a warm sunset, he finally arrived at the Sha family castle. It was a place at the edge of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range. It could be considered a village, but it was a little big because many martialists came here. The Sha Castle was located in the depths of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range. Hence, many adventurers or those who went to the Dragon Submission Mountain Range would stay here for a period of time to prepare sufficient food and tools before entering the depths of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range. Most of the buildings here were made of sand and stone, and they looked quite sturdy. Along the way, Ling Xiao also saw many transcendent realm cultivators, and his originally somewhat unique appearance was no longer so conspicuous. The martial artists were either discussing missions, the world's major events, or talking about a certain senior sister or junior sister of a certain sect. They burst into laughter that all men understood. What was interesting was that Ling Xiao actually heard about himself from these people. It seemed that the incident in Green Valley had caused quite a stir. The Sha family castle was not considered a town, but even though it was small, it had all the essentials. There were pharmacies, blacksmiths, food ingredient stores, and so on. Almost every shop was filled with people. These martialists who came from the sects were not stingy in forking out large amounts of silvers to buy the things that they liked. In the eyes of the commoners, they were simply fools with too much money. But in the eyes of these martialists, Gold and silver were not worth mentioning at all. Let's go to the pharmacies to take a look. Yuan Venerate suggested. This place is close to the depths of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range, and we can often get some rare medicinal herbs. But in this small place, there are fewer outstanding alchemists, and there are many treasures that they can't even recognize. Who knows? We might be able to pick up some scraps. Ling Xiao felt that it made sense. Anyway, the sky was already dark, and it was too dangerous to enter the depths of the Dragon Submission Mountain Range now. So he intended to stay in the Sha Castle for a night and set off early the next morning. Even though the Moon Arrival Festival was getting closer and closer, but some things could not be rushed. The scale of this pharmacy was not small, and it was not inferior to a big city, like Sky Cloud City. The most amazing thing was that the ceiling of this shop was actually set up a strange light absorption array. This array did not have any attack power, but it could absorb the sun's rays during the day and release these rays at night. A good light absorption array could last for more than 10 days without any problem. This pharmacy's light absorption array was slightly worse, but it could last for about 6 hours, which was definitely enough for them to use. Entering the pharmacy, it felt no different from daytime. The gentle rays of light revealed a tinge of warmth, which made the cold night weather not as cold as before. There were many people in the shop, and when Ling Xiao walked in, he did not attract too much attention. Only the shopkeeper took a glance at him. Ling Xiao did not wear the Yuehua School's uniform. Instead, he wore an ordinary set of clothes. However, in the eyes of the commoners, it was still rather luxurious. This set of clothes was worth at least 10 taels of silver. Towards such rich people, the staff of the pharmacy would usually not keep a close eye on them, as they were afraid of offending these potential big customers. With no one to disturb him, Ling Xiao was able to calm down and search the entire pharmacy in search of the missing treasures that his master, Yuan Venerate, wanted to find. All sorts of medicinal herbs, medicinal fruits, as well as various materials from various demonic beasts and ferocious beasts could be seen here. Master, it seems like the Sha family also has an outstanding alchemist. Basically, all the valuable materials have been bought. Ling Xiao secretly transmitted his voice to Yuan Venerate after looking around. And your analysis is correct, but it's just the basics. This alchemist level is much worse than old Yang's, let alone Master's. After choosing so many ingredients, he still missed out on an extremely precious material. Yuan Venerate replied, "This disciple has also discovered it." Ling Xiao smiled. "However, Master, is there any use in buying it?" "Of course there is. I am going to teach you how to refine a yellow-grade, low-grade elixir pill. This material is a must. Buy it." Yuan Venerate transmitted his voice. Ling Xiao nodded and walked around as if nothing had happened. Then he walked over to the material he had taken a fancy to and said, "Waiter, can I trouble you to help me retrieve this material?" Actually, he was a little too nervous. There was simply no need for that. This material had been here for at least a month, yet no one had taken it away. This meant that no one had recognized it. Even if he acted a little impatient, the waiter would only find it strange and wouldn't care too much. The waiter had been staring at Ling Xiao for a long time. When he had first seen Ling Xiao's expensive clothes, he had thought that he had met a big customer. In the end, this fellow had only taken a fancy to a cheap material. This made him a little unhappy. 100 taels of silver, the waiter said faintly. Ling Xiao casually took out the money. 100 taels of silver were nothing to him. It was something that he wouldn't even bother picking up if it was thrown on the ground. You don't have to give him so much. Even 1 tael of silver is too much for such an ordinary material. How dare he ask for 100 taels of silver? Chapter 4:27. The person who had suddenly appeared in the medicine shop and said that the shop assistant was trying to scam him was a woman. It was a woman in a yellow dress. Ling Xiao had seen many beautiful women. However, the most outstanding ones were Ling Yixue, Dayuling Lanyu, and this woman in the yellow dress. Their beauty was not superficial. Instead, it was a combination of inner and outer beauty. Compared to them, the number one beauty of Tianfeng City, Shi Yulian, was nothing. Although Lingyu, Su Ying, and Xumei were also beautiful, there was a difference. However, they lacked a certain feeling. Wow, look, Fairy Linglong is here. Rumor has it that Fairy Linglong is the number one beauty of the Sha Castle. Looks like it's true. Look at her body, it's so hot. Sure, don't spout nonsense. Fairy Linglong is not someone you can blaspheme. She is the holy maiden that the heavens gave to the Sha Castle. She is the blessing of all martial artists. Many martial artists who were seriously injured or on the verge of death were saved by Fairy Linglong. Cough, cough. I'm just saying. You can't even say that. If you blaspheme Fairy Linglong again, don't blame me for cutting ties with you. Also, if someone tries to teach you a lesson because of this, I won't help you. In the crowd, the two of them actually got into a conflict because of Fairy Linglong. Ling Xiao looked at this woman thoughtfully. To be honest, his first impression of this woman was quite good. After all, not only was she beautiful, but she also had an inner and outer beauty that was mesmerizing. Of course, the most important thing was that she was willing to speak up for him. He knew that the shop assistant was asking for a ridiculous price. However, the value of the medicine was definitely not something that could be bought with 100 taels of silver. He was worried that a long delay might lead to trouble, so he did not care about this. Thank you for speaking up for me, Fairy. Ling Xiao looked at Fairy Linglong and said to the shop assistant, "Wrap the medicine properly. Here's 100 taels of silver." The shop assistant did not dare to take 100 taels of silver. He hurriedly waved his hands. Ling Xiao grabbed the medicine and stuffed the money into the shop assistant's hands. Only then did he feel relieved. The medicinal herbs in his hands, not to mention 100 taels of silver, even 10,000 taels of gold would not be able to buy it. At this moment, there were more and more people gathering around. If they were to be discovered, this business would not be able to continue. Fairy Linglong, as you can see, he was the one who insisted on buying it. I didn't force him. The shop assistant wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He was extremely fearful of Fairy Linglong. Within the Sha Castle, a single word from Fairy Linglong was superior to a single word from the Northern Han Emperor. That was because the martial artists who frequently came here would all listen to her. Although Fairy Linglong was neither an alchemist nor an alchemist, she had a special ability that allowed her to heal the injuries of martial artists. Furthermore, this ability was extremely powerful. In terms of healing injuries, it was better than any medicine. This was also the reason why she was respected. That's 9 dragon grass. Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. Sure enough, there were experts in the crowd. However, most of these people did not pay too much attention to the 9 dragon grass that was mixed in with the 9 dragon grass, so they missed it. This time, when Ling Xiao picked it out, someone immediately recognized it. On the surface, the 9 dragon grass was extremely similar to the 9 dragon grass. If one was not an alchemist or an alchemist, they would not be able to tell the difference. However, the liquid flowing out of the 9 dragon grass was green, while the liquid flowing out of the 9 dragon grass was golden yellow. If one's soul force was strong enough, they would even be able to sense that the 9 dragon grass faintly emitted the aura of a dragon, while the 9 dragon grass did not. Rumor had it that the 1,000-year-old 9 dragon grass could even produce the image of a true dragon. If one diligently comprehended it, it would not be strange for one to comprehend a dragon-type martial soul. The 9 dragon grass in Ling Xiao's hands should only be 500 to 600 years old. However, this item, strictly speaking, could only be purchased with spirit stones. Even gold could not buy it. The 100-year 9 dragon grass was one of the main ingredients for refining the low yellow-grade medicinal pill, the 100-year 9 dragon quenching origin pill. Auxiliary ingredients could be substituted, but the 100-year 9 dragon grass absolutely could not be substituted. The 100-year 9 dragon quenching origin pill was an extremely precious cultivation elixir. Its effect on Ling Xiao's cultivation base was even better than a supreme-grade true origin pill. More importantly, a supreme-grade true origin pill could only improve one's true origin pill. On the other hand, the 9-dragon quenching origin pill could improve everything, including one's soul, true origin pill, body, and even one's martial soul. It could be considered an all-round improvement. The Yuan Venerate had originally intended to refine such an elixir for Ling Xiao. However, the ingredients required to refine such an elixir were not easy to find. The Yuehua school only had some auxiliary ingredients and was missing a few key ingredients. One of them was the 9-dragon grass. However, the Yuan Venerate had not expected that Ling Xiao would be so lucky. He had not even entered the depths of the Dragon Submission mountain range, yet he had already found it in the Sha family's medicine store. Everyone, including Fairy Linglong, looked at Ling Xiao with a hint of disdain when they heard the potion master's explanation of the 9-dragon herb's miraculous properties. The shop assistant seemed to understand why Ling Xiao had insisted on buying the 9-dragon grass. "We are not selling this item anymore." Before the shop assistant could say anything, the shopkeeper of the medicine store rushed over and said loudly, "What a joke! I have already paid for it. This item is already mine. You are dreaming if you say that you are not selling it anymore." Ling Xiao did not care about what the shopkeeper had said. He immediately stored the 9-dragon grass in the Mountain River realm and planted it. If he could use the Mountain River realm to raise the 500-year-old 9-dragon grass to 999 years, the effects would be even better. It could not exceed 1,000 years. Otherwise, it would be a 1,000-year-old 9-dragon quenching origin pill. Given Ling Xiao's current cultivation base, there was no way he could use it. That was an elixir used by sky humans. Your Highness Fairy Linglong, you have to make a decision for this store. This person is obviously trying to force us to buy this item. The shopkeeper did not look at Ling Xiao. Instead, he cupped his fists and said to Fairy Linglong, "An outsider actually dares to behave atrociously in the Sha family's castle. Does he not want to live anymore? That's right. Leave the item behind and get out of here. He actually wants to buy the 9-dragon grass for a mere 100 silver taels. Surround him, don't let him escape." Soon, Ling Xiao was surrounded. The security around him was so tight that not even a drop of water could escape. He could roughly understand what these people were thinking. If he could not obtain something good, others should not think about obtaining it either. Ling Xiao's cultivation was at the early stage of the Transcendent Realm 3rd layer, which was indeed strong enough. However, the Sha family's castle was a special place. It was not strange for cultivators to appear in the 4th or 5th layer of the Transcendent Realm. There were even cultivators at the 6th layer of the Transcendent Realm. However, there were no cultivators above the 7th layer. Chapter 428. Ling Xiao glanced at these people indifferently before turning to the shopkeeper and saying coldly, "I'll give you 10 breaths of time to get them to scram. Otherwise, your shop will be closed." He wasn't someone who liked to cause trouble, but if someone wanted to bully him, he wouldn't be merciful. There was no such thing as regretting something that had already been agreed upon. "Young master, why don't I buy your 9-dragon grass for 100,000 taels of gold?" I believe the shopkeeper won't say anything then. Fairy Linglong suddenly said, 100,000 taels of gold? Humph. How about I give you 100,000 taels of gold in exchange for a 9-dragon grass? Ling Xiao asked as he looked at Fairy Linglong calmly. His initial good impression of her had completely vanished. She clearly wanted to take advantage of him, yet she pretended to be a hypocrite. He despised such people the most. "Young man, although the 9-dragon grass is precious, you can't enjoy it without your life. Since Fairy Linglong is being merciful, you should quickly find a way out. Don't be so stubborn." Someone in the crowd shouted, "That's right, the 9-dragon grass should be found in the 1,000 Ghost Forest." You can go there when you reach the Transcendent Realm's 6th layer. Leave this 9 dragon grass behind. Someone else shouted. Ling Xiao sneered inwardly. It was strange that a Transcendent Realm 6th layer cultivator could enter the 1,000 Ghost Forest without dying. He had heard from his Yuan Venerate master that if one didn't have a Heaven Realm powerhouse or the protection of a Heaven Realm powerhouse, one would die without a doubt. Besides, even if one could enter and come out alive, the 9 dragon grass wasn't a weed that grew everywhere. One might not be able to find it. These people probably understood this, which was why they were so desperate for the 9 dragon grass. For breaths of time. Ling Xiao said indifferently, "There's no need to wait for 10 breaths of time. Fairy Linglong, you've seen how stubborn this brat is. We'll just have to use force," the shopkeeper shouted. "But don't worry, Fairy Linglong, we won't take his life. We'll just capture him and force him to hand over the 9 dragon grass." Fairy Linglong glanced at Ling Xiao and sighed helplessly before retreating from the battlefield. "Go." As soon as the shopkeeper gave the order, the dozen or so Transcendent Realm 1st layer and 2nd layer Transcendent cultivators rushed towards Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao didn't fight back. He just stood there counting the time. 6 breaths. Ding ding dang dang. Boom, boom. Continuous sounds of collision rang out. Regardless of whether it was weapons or martial skills, they all bounced off after coming into contact with Ling Xiao's body. Although Ling Xiao had suppressed most of his strength, his physique was still incredibly strong. If a cultivator below the Transcendent Realm 3rd layer didn't have a celestial grade artifact or above, they wouldn't be able to harm him. He didn't even bother to dodge. 10 breaths. Ling Xiao suddenly smiled and said, 10 breaths have passed. Say goodbye to your pharmacy. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly struck out with his palm, and a destructive aura spread throughout the entire medicine store. The medicine store, which covered an area of 4 to 5 acres, was instantly reduced to ruins. After doing this, he slowly walked away as if nothing had happened. His footsteps were still so heavy. However, no one dared to chase after him. That was because everyone knew what would happen if that attack were to land on a person. He's only at the early Transcendent Realm 3rd layer. How can his attack be so terrifying? It's not just an attack. His body seems to be made of steel. He doesn't fear our attacks at all. No wonder he's so arrogant. This young man's strength is truly terrifying. Shopkeeper Liu, you've kicked an iron plate. Consider yourself unlucky. That's right. This matter was originally your fault. You actually went back on your word after making a deal. Do you think this young man is easy to bully? Humans were like this. When the tree fell, the monkeys would scatter. When the wall fell, everyone would push it. Many people who tried to attack Ling Xiao just now realized that this young man wasn't easy to bully after witnessing Ling Xiao's strength. As a result, there were naturally people who were reasonable. Shopkeeper Liu's face was pale and he was furious. You don't need to worry. Anyone who dares to cause trouble in the Shaw family castle won't be able to return alive. Fairy Linglong shot a glance at Shopkeeper Liu before turning around and leaving behind those words. She had always been the queen of this place. No one had ever dared to not give her face. But today, a 14-year-old young man, a mere early Transcendent Realm 3rd layer young man, had actually destroyed the Shaw family castle's only medicine store in front of her. More importantly, she was the owner behind the scenes of this medicine store. How could she allow such a thing to happen? Ling Xiao was already on her death list. She wanted to let this young man know who the real owner of this place was. At this time, Ling Xiao had already settled down in an inn in the Shaw family castle. He didn't know what Fairy Linglong was thinking, but even if he knew, he probably wouldn't care. In fact, he might even be a little excited. It had been 2 days since he came out. His hands were really itching for a fight. When he went to bed, Ling Xiao still didn't take out the refining formation stone. To him, persevering for 2 months was also a test. If he couldn't even persevere through this, how difficult would the path of cultivation be? Would he be able to continue? Master, I've already obtained the 9 dragon grass. There are still 2 main materials left to refine the 100-year 9 dragon quenching origin pill, right? Sitting cross-legged, Ling Xiao didn't plan to sleep. Night was the best time to cultivate. Of his 2 sword soul doppelgangers, one was cultivating the soul dye, and the other was cultivating the shadow sword art. The power of soul dye had already been demonstrated in Green Valley. Ling Xiao would never give up. As for the shadow sword technique, his snow lotus sword technique had been cultivated to perfection, and the last snowstorm had also reached 100% power, so it was time to cultivate a new sword technique. If his cultivation could reach the 7th layer of the transcendent realm and his shadow sword art reached the 6th layer grand accomplishment, he would be able to create another sword soul doppelganger to cultivate. At that time, the 3 sword soul doppelgangers would be able to cultivate together with his main body, allowing him to cultivate faster and more evenly. His main body was still comprehending the 9 meridian aura sword. Ling Xiao liked this new martial technique very much. The appearance of the aura sword could undergo various changes. It was much more convenient than using a treasure sword. It could also do many things that a treasure sword couldn't. That's right. We've found the 9 dragon grass. As long as we obtain the origin energy fruit and the core of a 4th grade dire beast, we can refine the 9 dragon quenching origin pill. Yuan Venerate nodded. Oh, that's right. We're about to enter the dragon subduing mountain range. Master needs to rest well. If we encounter a powerful dire beast that you can't handle, Master will have to help. Rest well, Master. Disciple will wake you up when you are needed. Chapter 429. Ling Xiao had snatched the beast ring from a disciple of the Beast Monarch Palace. Its principle was similar to that of a storage ring. However, the beast ring was a space specially used to store beasts. Hence, the beasts could survive inside as there was a special array inside. All right, it's not convenient to always stay outside. The Yuan Venerate nodded in agreement before Ling Xiao put it away in the beast ring. Although Ling Xiao's Mountain River realm could also store living creatures, the problem was that once they entered the Mountain River realm, they would be fused with the Mountain River martial soul and become an existence that was fused with Ling Xiao's soul. For example, the ancient golden dragon could no longer exist on its own. If it wanted to appear in this realm, it could only appear in the form of Ling Xiao's martial soul. This was a situation that occurred after the Mountain River martial soul and Ling Xiao's soul completely fused. There were benefits, but there were also some inconveniences. Of course, even if there were no such inconveniences, Ling Xiao wouldn't have dared to let the Yuan Venerate in so easily. The Mountain River martial soul was still a huge secret to Ling Xiao. This was a secret that he absolutely couldn't let others know about easily. This included his master. After all, Ling Xiao really couldn't guarantee that the Yuan Venerate would be able to remain calm in front of the Mountain River martial soul. After making arrangements for the Yuan Venerate, Ling Xiao closed his eyes and cultivated while resting. Although he was very tired after a day, the way martialists rested was somewhat different from ordinary people. This was especially true for transcendent grade martialists who only needed to sit in a lotus position and let the true origin energy circulate in their body a few times to get rid of their exhaustion. The silent night slipped through her fingertips without a sound. When the morning sun shone over the entire Sha castle, Ling Xiao slowly opened his eyes. After a night of cultivation, his soul dye and shadow form sword art had both reached the peak of the first level. He reckoned that he would be able to break through soon. Naturally, the 9 meridian aura sword had improved the most. In just one night, he had already comprehended the 2nd aura sword. The more aura swords there were, the more flexible it would be to use them, the harder it would be for the enemy to guard against them. In the process of cultivating the 9 meridians chi sword, Ling Xiao discovered that his cultivation had also unknowingly increased. Mid-third layer, transcendent realm. He didn't deliberately cultivate, but he actually broke through just like that. It seemed like his current cultivation method had been right. Although he might encounter some dangers on this trip with his Yuan Venerate master, such as being targeted by Elder Jean and the others, he was confident that he would be able to survive. However, such a fast cultivation speed was really worth the risk. Moreover, would the other party succeed in killing him? What a joke! He, Ling Xiao, would definitely make these people who tried to kill him suffer a double loss. Later, Ling Xiao got down from the bed and realized that the pressure from the refining array stone had lessened. He seemed to have gotten used to the weight of 2,000 kilograms. Might as well adjust it to 3,000 caddies. The Yuan Venerate had already explained the method of adjusting the weight to Ling Xiao in detail. Otherwise, the Yuan Venerate would tire himself to death if he had to worry about such a small matter. When the weight of the refining array stone was adjusted to 3,000 caddies, Ling Xiao clearly felt his body sink and his face turned slightly red. Even his breathing became a little hurried. However, after adapting for a moment, although it was still rather tiring, he at least wasn't unable to walk anymore. The weight of 3,000 caddies was just right. It was enough to put a lot of pressure on Ling Xiao without affecting his normal movements. In the depths of the Dragon Submission mountain range, there were many dangers. There were basically no demonic beasts there. Basically, all that existed were dire beasts and even more powerful evil beasts. Even if Ling Xiao traveled alone in his ancient golden dragon form, he could only run for his life if he encountered a high-level dire beast, let alone an evil beast. This was also why the Yuan Venerate had to travel with him. Ling Xiao could deal with ordinary dangers by himself. However, the Yuan Venerate would naturally step in when he encountered life-threatening dangers. Ling Xiao understood the Yuan Venerate's intentions very well. This trip to the Dragon Submission mountain range was basically Ling Xiao's own adventure. Only by doing so could he hone his ability to face dangers alone. Even if he encountered a high-level dire beast or an even more powerful evil beast, as long as Ling Xiao's life wasn't in danger and he could escape, the Yuan Venerate wouldn't step in. Of course, in order to ensure safety, most martialists would choose to travel in groups when they entered the depths of the Dragon Submission mountain range. If there were 4 or 5 or even more than 10 transcendents traveling together, they would still have the ability to fight back even if they encountered a stronger dire beast. Furthermore, this might be a better way to train people. After all, if one encountered a high-level dire beast alone, the first choice would be to run away. If there were more people, they could cooperate and fight together. This was also very effective in honing one's fighting techniques. Therefore, Ling Xiao also intended to find a few martialists to accompany him on this trip. In any case, he had an array formation stone on him now. Actually, the purpose of this trip was to hone his 9 meridian chi, sword, and combat ability. If he could avoid removing the array formation stone, he would try his best not to. However, finding other martialists to accompany him would be a little troublesome. Generally, martialists would form groups of 4 types. The first type would be martialists with similar interests. The second type would be martialists from the same sect. The third type would be martialist groups that were temporarily put together for the same goal. The last type would be martialists hired by certain groups. For example, the medicine shop that Ling Xiao had destroyed previously had hired many martialists to enter the depths of the Dragon Submission mountain range to search for medicinal herbs. Furthermore, some business groups and families would also hire martialists to do certain things. Ling Xiao could actually join any of these 4 groups. However, there was a problem now. After all, he had offended Fairy Linglong yesterday. It was still a question whether anyone would want to accompany him. If it really wasn't possible, he might as well enter the mountain alone. It wasn't a big deal. After leaving the inn, Ling Xiao headed directly to the entrance of the Dragon Submission mountain range. There was a tea house there all year round. Many martialists who were preparing to enter the mountain would gather here and then choose their own group. The tea house was indeed very lively. Even the outside was filled with people. These martialists were either standing, sitting, or chatting. They were all talking about entering the mountain range or how to form a group. "Young master, do you want to join our group?" Ling Xiao was just about to see if he could find a suitable group when he suddenly heard a voice. "Fairy Linglong?" To be honest, Ling Xiao was a little surprised. He had offended Fairy Linglong yesterday, and she still wanted to invite him to join her group. He definitely wouldn't believe that she had no ulterior motives. However, he wasn't the kind of person who was afraid of trouble. Since that was the case, why not join? This problem had to be solved eventually. Of course, he hoped that he wouldn't measure the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure. After all, it was a pity that he had to kill a beauty like Fairy Linglong with his own hands. Chapter 430. This one is naturally willing to accept Fairy Linglong's invitation. Novel, La Ling Xiao nodded. "Many thanks for young lord's invitation. May I know young lord's name?" Fairy Linglong asked with a smile. "My surname is Ling, so it's young Lord Ling. It's an honor to meet you." Fairy Linglong showed a very charming smile. At this time, a cold-faced cultivator standing next to her became unhappy. This person's cultivation had reached the early stage of the Transcendent Realm 5th layer, so it was normal for him to look down on Ling Xiao. "Humph, what young lord, he's just a brat." The man coldly snorted. "Fairy Linglong, we agreed that for this mission, the lowest cultivation must be at least at the late stage of the Transcendent Realm because that place is extremely dangerous. This little brat is only at the early stage of the Transcendent Realm. He's not qualified at all." "That's right, a brat who hasn't even been weaned off milk, who can rest assured." "Fairy Linglong, let me join your team." As soon as the cold-faced cultivator spoke, the surrounding Transcendent Realm 3rd layer cultivators who wanted to join the team began clamoring. Fairy Linglong smiled as she looked at Ling Xiao and said, "Young Master Ling, why don't you show them your strength? These people are all very arrogant. They won't listen to my explanation." Ling Xiao thought to himself, "You just want to observe my true strength. Humph. Unfortunately, I won't let you have your way. Even without the spirit refining stone, this young lord isn't afraid of facing a peak Transcendent Realm 3rd layer cultivator." Considering all this, Yong Kai nodded. "All right. Didn't you want to compete with young Lord Ling for a spot? We only need 30 people this time, so we're still short one spot. Originally, we planned to give it to young Lord Ling, but since you're not convinced, you can fight him one by one." Fairy Linglong's actions were simply looking for trouble for Ling Xiao. With so many cultivators here, there are more than a dozen who are at the late stage of the Transcendent Realm or above. Fortunately, the strongest was only at the peak of the Transcendent Realm, so most of the 4th layer masters had probably already been selected by Fairy Linglong. Otherwise, Ling Xiao would really have to reveal some of his strength. "All right, there's no need to be so troublesome. Come at me together." No matter how many Transcendent 3rd layer experts there were, Ling Xiao wasn't afraid at all. This was because if these people didn't have any special methods, they wouldn't even be able to break through his defense. He only needed to attack. Shameless boasting. "Brat, you are courting death." "Since you like it, then let's do it together and let this little brat know that it's not easy to survive outside." Amidst the chaotic roars, a total of 15 late and peak 3rd order Transcendent Realm cultivators rushed towards Ling Xiao. If these people knew how to cooperate, they might be able to hold on a little longer. However, they were too stupid and basically didn't know each other, so they swarmed over like a swarm of bees. Ling Xiao couldn't help but sneer as he casually took out a refining formation stone. After the true essence was activated, many fire snakes appeared on the ground. Although this fire snake array had been modified by Ling Xiao and was now equivalent to the attack of a 1st order Transcendent Realm cultivator, and there were over 100 fire snakes in this fire snake array. Most importantly, inside this spirit array, the fire snakes couldn't be destroyed. unless the spirit array was broken. Even if the fire snakes were destroyed, they would be reborn. The sudden appearance of these fire snakes caused the 15 cultivators to panic. If they had calmed down a little, even if they couldn't break the fire snake array, avoiding it wouldn't have been a problem. Unfortunately, these people had suddenly panicked. Coupled with the 2 chi swords that Ling Xiao suddenly shot out from his fingertips, he only needed to stand in place to attack all the enemies inside the fire snake array. In the blink of an eye, several people were pierced by the 2 chi swords and fell into pools of blood. Of course, they didn't die. Ling Xiao wasn't so bloodthirsty as to kill them. He had only injured them. In any case, Transcendent Realm cultivators could quickly recover from such minor injuries. With some injured people falling to the ground, the scene became even more chaotic. There were even conflicts between cultivators. In the end, Ling Xiao didn't even use much true qi and easily defeated these 15 cultivators in just 60 breaths of time. Fairy Linglong, you've gotten the result you wanted, right? Ling Xiao asked with a smile as he looked at the trembling Fairy Linglong. Young Master Ling actually knows about spirit arrays? How surprising! Fairy Linglong said in surprise, "It's nothing. Can we enter the mountain now?" The reason why Ling Xiao wanted to show off his strength was mainly to warn Fairy Linglong that if she really wanted to deal with him, she should be prepared to suffer heavy losses. He had already done his best. If she still didn't wake up, he would have to kill her. Of course. Fairy Linglong smiled. Right, I'm going to the 1,000 Ghost Forest this time, so if it's not on the way, we might have to split up after entering the depths of the dragon, subduing mountain range. Ling Xiao reminded, "What a coincidence, it's on the way." Fairy Linglong replied, "That's good." As for whether it was on the way or not, Ling Xiao didn't care at all. After all, he only joined this team to get rid of potential trouble. He didn't want to leave any trouble behind. Otherwise, it would be troublesome in the future. After entering the depths of the dragon, subduing mountain range, the team slowed down significantly. That was because danger lurked everywhere. If they were careless, they might have to pay a heavy price. The forest looked very quiet, but there would be wind blowing from time to time. It was impossible to tell if it was the wind, ferocious beasts hiding in the forest, or some cultivators with bad intentions. It had to be said that the quality of the people Fairy Linglong had chosen was quite high. Of course, the quality here was referring to their professionalism. As a beast hunter martial artist who often ventured into the dragon's submission mountain range, each of them had a pair of sharp eyes. Their eyes seemed to be able to see through the weeds and trees, easily catching any unexpected situation in the forest. At the same time, they had already unsheathed their weapons, ready to deal with any unforeseen circumstances. It was obvious that these people often worked together and had entered the dragon's subduing mountain range with Fairy Linglong countless times. Therefore, they had their own secret language to communicate with. With just a hand gesture or a look, they could understand what the other party meant. Ling Xiao didn't understand their hand gestures at first, but it wasn't difficult for him to learn them. After a short while, his mountain river martial soul had already analyzed all their hand gestures and looks. He could also clearly see what these people were trying to say. However, he didn't say it out loud. This time, he came with these people to see what they were trying to do. Some things were better kept a secret. The 1,500 kilograms of weight from the formation refining stone made it very difficult for him to walk. Even so, he didn't fall behind. The benefits of cultivating one's body in the martial vein realm were fully displayed at this moment. Chapter 431. Ling Xiao walked at the back of the group, making it easier for him to observe the situation of the group. Fairy Linglong walked in the middle of the group, the stern-faced cultivator standing guard beside her. Not only that, but this woman was also surrounded by cultivators at the Transcendent Realm 4th layer or above, like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. Fairy Linglong did not seem to feel that this was inappropriate. In Xia family castle, she had always been the high and mighty queen, So these people willing to protect her and follow her was a very normal thing in her eyes. She was beautiful, and even a smile from her was enough to drive many men crazy. She had a special ability that could easily heal the injuries of cultivators, causing them to respect her greatly. She was also strong, a peak transcendent realm 4th layer cultivator, and although she was not very strong, she was still one of the strongest cultivators in Shaw family castle. In addition, she also had an extremely powerful martial spirit, and if she wanted to, she could easily defeat a transcendent realm 5th layer cultivator. All of this made her feel high and mighty, that others should kneel before her and lick her boots. What was even more hateful was that this guy surnamed Ling actually dared to refuse her request in front of so many people. If she did not teach this little brat a lesson, she would not be able to swallow this resentment in her heart. There was nothing wrong with being arrogant in itself, but thinking that all men in the world should kneel before her was troublesome. Meeting someone like Ling Xiao, she really deserved to be unlucky. The stern-faced cultivator seemed to be discussing something with Fairy Ling Long, but the two of them were speaking very softly and were deliberately using their true qi to block their voices. So unless Ling Xiao paid the price of exposing his strength, he really could not hear what they were saying. Lung Mian, what do you think? That little brat is indeed a little tricky. He actually knows spirit arrays, but it doesn't matter. His cultivation is too low as long as we can seize the opportunity. Subduing him will be easy. It's good that you are confident, but don't be in a hurry to act. The place we discovered this time is most likely the cultivation place of an ancient cultivator. There are many good things inside, but the troublesome thing is that it is protected by a spirit array. It just so happens that this little brat understands spirit arrays, so let's let him break it first. Fairy Linglong's original intention was to attack by force. The reason why she had brought so many people with her was that she wanted to dig open the cave abode of the ancient martial artist and avoid the array formation. However, this method was not only crude, but it might not succeed. The most troublesome thing was that it might require something like a thunderbolt bomb. It would cause too much of a commotion, and it would be troublesome if it attracted a powerful beast. Therefore, after learning that Ling Xiao knew about arrays, she changed her mind. Originally, he wanted to find an opportunity to kill Ling Xiao on the way, but now he changed his plan to wait for Ling Xiao to break the Immortal's cave's array formation before killing him. Understood. The cold-faced cultivator also had the same idea. Since there was someone who understood array formations, how could they not make use of him? Brace yourselves. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it will be. Although we've walked this path more than once, it's best not to play with fire. Otherwise, if we fail miserably, we'll be wiped out. The cold-faced martial artist suddenly released a loud voice, which spread to the ears of all the martial artists. Understood. The other martial artists responded one after another. Although Ling Xiao did not know what this cold-faced martial artist discussed with Fairy Linglong, he could guess some things in his heart when he saw the changes in their expressions. Looks like this woman really won't shed tears until she sees the coffin. She won't turn back until she hits a wall. Since that's the case, then I won't be polite either. At the beginning, the team did not suffer any attacks. Probably because the auras of the 30 martial artists were more powerful. The fierce beasts hiding in the dragon, submitting mountain range, did not attack rashly. However, as they walked deeper and deeper, powerful fierce beasts also started appearing. Some were just observing, while some already launched attacks brazenly. This was not Ling Xiao's first time encountering fierce beasts, but each time he saw the scene of fighting with fierce beasts, he still could not help furrowing his brows slightly. Fierce beasts did not have any mercy to speak of. They killed people completely instinctively, ruthlessly, and straightforwardly, absolutely not sloppily. The one who attacked the team was an ice sparrow. Although it was just a 3rd-level fierce beast, and its strength was not considered strong, the problem was that it could fly. The ice sparrow's size was very small, about the same size as a sparrow. Its entire body was dark blue and emitted an incomparably cold intent. It could release a very terrifying cold poison. Making use of high-speed flight, the ice sparrow only needed to scratch or peck its target, and it could inject the cold poison into the other party's body. Even if the target was several times larger than its size, or even dozens of times larger, once it was hit by the cold poison, it would also gradually stiffen and finally die due to all the blood in its body freezing, becoming its delicacy. The ice sparrow lay in ambush between the leaves. Because it was seriously too small, the martial artists did not detect its existence at all the way until it suddenly attacked and scratched 4 to 5 martial artists in an instant. Did everyone realize the danger? Those 4 to 5 martial artists who were scratched fell to the ground after an instant, their entire bodies trembling, as if they were lying naked in a world of ice and snow. After discovering the ice sparrow's attack, the martial artists started attacking in an organized manner and formed a tight protective net. It was a pity that the ice sparrow was too cunning. The moment it saw that it could not attack again, it disappeared into the dense forest. The martial artists had no way of chasing after it at all. Ling Xiao might have been able to kill the ice sparrow if he had removed the array refinement stone or used the sword control technique. However, he did not do so. He had not forgotten the Yuan Venerate's instructions. After entering the depths of the Dragon's Submission Mountain Range, he had to bring the array refinement stone with him when possible. As for the sword control technique, it was a lethal weapon that he would not use easily. Ling Xiao suddenly saw Fairy Linglong helping the cultivators who had been poisoned by the cold poison. This was actually nothing to be surprised about. However, the problem was that he could faintly see the faint shadow of a dragon behind Fairy Linglong's back. There was also the extremely familiar aura of a dragon. Do you want it? Ling Xiao could even feel the primordial golden dragon within his body letting out a low roar. If his guess was right, Fairy Linglong probably possessed a dragon-type martial soul. This was an extremely rare martial soul. Without using any medicine, Fairy Linglong was able to expel the cold poison from their bodies easily. The martial artists naturally thanked her and expressed their loyalty. They said a bunch of useless things that Ling Xiao could not be bothered to listen to. After suffering the probing attack of the ice sparrow, the team became even more cautious. However, it was simply impossible to avoid the attacks of the ferocious beasts after entering the depths of the Dragon's Submission Mountain Range. After all, it was absolutely impossible to do so unless one could completely restrain one's aura and conceal oneself. Ling Xiao could naturally do this. His blood shadow martial soul had been fused with the primordial golden dragon, and its abilities had also been absorbed by the primordial golden dragon. Therefore, as long as Ling Xiao could completely control the primordial golden dragon, it would be very easy to do this. Even though it was a little difficult, it was still doable. Chapter 432. As the group ventured deeper into the Dragon's Submission Mountain Range, the danger increased as well. Soon the second attack arrived. This time it was still the ice sparrow. However, it wasn't just one ice sparrow that came, it was a group of them. The leader of the ice sparrows was a level 3 ferocious beast. The rest of the ice sparrows were level 1 and level 2 ferocious beasts, but there were too many of them. There were more than 100 of them. In the end, after more than a dozen cultivators had been poisoned by the cold poison, and one cultivator had even died on the spot, they were finally able to kill and repel the 100 ice sparrows. The ones they killed were all level 1 and level 2 ice sparrows. The leader of the ice sparrows still tried to escape at the most crucial moment, but this time it was too close to Ling Xiao. In a short distance of 5 or 6 meters, Ling Xiao suddenly shot out a chi sword and pierced through the ice sparrow's body. With the ice sparrow leader dead, the rest of the ice sparrows scattered in all directions, finally resolving the crisis. Not bad, Brother Ling. What kind of sword move is that? It's actually so powerful. That ice sparrow's flying speed was so fast, but it was actually pierced to death by you in one move. I heard that Brother Ling is only 14 years old, right? That's really scary, being able to kill a level 3 vicious beast at the age of 14. You're much stronger than me. Brother Ling, when you become a hero in the future, Don't forget about us brothers. This kid is not bad. He seems to be a ruthless character. He must have undergone a lot of actual combat. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to remain so calm in the face of the attack of the berserk beasts. He's probably a disciple from some sect. Perhaps it was because Fairy Linglong did not inform these cultivators of her plans, so they were not stingy with their praise for Ling Xiao. After all, if the ice sparrow were to escape, it would probably attract even more ice sparrows. At that time, it would be even more troublesome and difficult to deal with. Reality was like this. In the world of martial artists, as long as you were strong enough, you would be able to attract the respect of others. This was the rule of this world. It was very simple and direct. Fairy, this isn't good. I didn't expect that this kid would be admired by those people so quickly. I'm afraid it won't be convenient for us to make a move later. The cold-faced cultivator frowned and transmitted his voice to Fairy Linglong. Don't be afraid. These people are all fence-sitters. They have received many benefits from me. As long as I say the word, they will naturally lean towards me immediately. Don't worry, Fairy Linglong exclaimed with absolute confidence. It could be seen that she had experienced something like this before. Now, she was even more mature and terrifying than before. How could she fail? After that, Fairy Linglong continued to treat the injuries of those who were injured before cremating the bodies of those who had died in battle. There were too many beasts in the Dragon Submission mountain range. If it was just a burial, the corpse would be dug out quickly and eaten. Therefore, cremation was the best choice. After dealing with these matters, the group continued to move forward. After that, they encountered consecutive attacks from ferocious beasts. But fortunately, these 4 times, only people were injured and no one died. Just like that, they had been walking for more than an hour. Everyone, we've arrived at our destination. Let's set up camp and set up the security perimeter. Eat something and recover. The next step is crucial. Fairy Linglong suddenly said from within the group. The cultivators were also really exhausted. Although the 2-hour journey was actually not that long after several consecutive battles, the exhaustion could be said to be enormous. Hearing Fairy Linglong say that they could rest, many of them immediately lay flat on the ground. After resting for a while, they began to set up a small defensive fortress around them. Ling Xiao casually threw a low-grade True Essence pill into his mouth. The True Essence in his body was quickly replenished, and his cultivation naturally rose a little. Fairy Linglong, since you've arrived at your destination, we should part ways here. Ling Xiao thought for a moment before standing up and saying. He said that intentionally to see if Fairy Linglong would let him stay. If she did, it meant that she was up to something. If she didn't, it meant that she had given up on him, and he could simply leave. Young Masterling, please wait. The moment Fairy Linglong spoke, Ling Xiao sighed helplessly. It seemed like he couldn't escape from destroying her. What's wrong? Is Fairy Linglong unwilling to let me go? Ling Xiao asked. Young Masterling, please don't misunderstand. I'll tell you the truth today. We've discovered an ancient cultivator's cave abode. It's very likely that there are martial arts manuals, pills, divine weapons, and even martial soul inheritances inside. Fairy Linglong said. However, this cave abode is protected by a formation, and we don't want to act rashly. Since young master knows about formations, can you help us? Ancient cultivator's cave abode? Hearing this, Ling Xiao's eyelids twitched. To him, this was also a great temptation. Yes, Fairy Linglong, let's not beat around the bush. I do know about formations, and I can decipher most of them. However, how should we split the treasures we find? Ling Xiao asked straightforwardly. If we find any treasures, you'll get 30%. The remaining 70% will be divided among us, Fairy Linglong replied. That's not bad, but I'm afraid others will object. Ling Xiao looked at the surrounding cultivators. They won't object because, without you, we'll have to use brute force to open the cave abode. In the end, we might destroy the treasures inside, and no one will be able to get anything. Fairy Linglong explained. Furthermore, this cave abode is huge, and there's definitely a lot of treasures inside. Even if we don't get anything, I can still compensate them with equivalent value. We'll listen to Fairy Linglong. Yes, Fairy Linglong can say anything. All right, since that's the case, it's a deal, Ling Xiao said with a smile. He knew very well that after this matter was over, this would definitely not be the way to split the treasures. If he guessed correctly, Fairy Linglong probably wanted his life. However, Ling Xiao's life was not that easy to take. Whoever wanted to take his life, he would make that person suffer a double loss after trying to kill him. That's great. With young Master Ling's help, wouldn't the treasures inside the cave abode be easily obtained? Fairy Linglong heaved a sigh of relief. She did not want to fall out with Ling Xiao now. Otherwise, who would help her open the cave abode? You flatter me. Since that's the case, quickly bring me to the cave abode. After I'm done with this matter, I still have to go to the forest of 1,000 ghosts. Ling Xiao said calmly. I'm afraid that won't do. Fairy Linglong looked at the sky and said, This cave abode is very mysterious. It only appears at night, and it won't appear for more than an hour. We have to wait. I see. All right, you guys can rest first. I'll go out and take a look. Ling Xiao recovered quickly. He did not want to waste time here. It would be good to find a few wild beasts to practice his skills. Chapter 433. The night was like a ferocious beast that blotted out the sky, covering the entire Dragon Submission mountain range. The last ray of light on the horizon had completely disappeared. The entire camp was now shrouded in darkness. The bonfires had been lit, and the cultivators were all busy with their duties. Ling Xiao had also returned from outside. Unfortunately, he couldn't find the ancient cultivator's cave abode. Fairy Linglong wasn't lying. That cave abode would only appear at night. Not far away, the originally flat ground began to rise, and a 10-meter-tall mountain appeared. On this mountain, there was clearly a very obvious cave abode halfway up the mountain. Ling Xiao could sense traces of an ancient cultivator's aura coming from it, and he could confirm that it was indeed an ancient cultivator's cave mansion. Moreover, there really were treasures inside. A woo! In the distance, a mournful wolf's howl sounded, causing one's heart to tremble. Let's go! Young Masterling, the cave mansion has already appeared. Fairy Linglong, the cold-faced cultivator, and 2 other peak, transcendent realm 4th layer cultivators walked over together. That place is very narrow, and it's difficult to enter with too many people, so the 5 of us should be enough. I'm only responsible for opening the array. The rest can be arranged by Fairy Linglong, Ling Xiao said indifferently. Good, let's go. Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced cultivator walked at the front, with Ling Xiao in the middle, and the other 2 peak transcendent realm 4th layer cultivators at the back. Both of them carried longbows on their backs, clearly proficient in archery martial skills. It was even possible that their martial spirits were related to archery. Ling Xiao couldn't help but sneer in his heart. This was to prevent him from escaping. But why would he want to escape? There was no need for him to escape at all. If these people wanted to deal with him, he could just kill them all. Searching for treasures had always been Ling Xiao's hobby. With the temperament of a youth, he had a unique fondness for adventure and treasures. The group of 5 arrived at the foot of the mountain. We only have half an hour, be careful. Young Master Ling, we'll have to trouble you. Fairy Linglong looked at Ling Xiao and said, the mountain was very tall, but the cave abode was only about 10 meters above the ground. There was obviously a stone platform near the cave abode where people could stand. It was likely that this ancient warrior had discovered this wonderful place back then, so he placed his own cultivation place here. Ling Xiao didn't say anything. He stretched out his finger, and a chi sword shot out. It actually pierced the hard rock, and then turned into something soft like a rope and wrapped around the rock. Then he slowly shortened his chi sword and continued to climb up the cliff. There was no other way. With the heavy formation refining stones on him, he couldn't fly at all. He could only use this stupid method. Fairy, this kid's movement technique isn't very good. It's easy to deal with him. The cold-faced cultivator sent a voice transmission to Fairy Linglong when he saw Ling Xiao leave. I'll say the same thing again. Make a move after you get the item. It would be bad if there was a formation in the cave. Fairy Linglong was truly a scheming person. She wanted to kill Ling Xiao, but she wanted to kill him only after she was done with him. Ling Xiao climbed to the entrance of the cave abode and kept his chi sword. He couldn't help but feel a little happy. This 9 meridians chi sword was really just at the right time. If not for this thing, he really would have to think about how to climb so high. The formation of an ancient warrior's cave abode was actually not complicated. Adding on the fact that it had been here for a long time, it was actually very weak. For people who were good at formations, it was easy to break it. But for those who didn't know anything about formations, it was like a tiger trying to eat the sky with nowhere to go. Ling Xiao took out a tool and casually fiddled with the formation a few times. The formation suddenly flashed with a blinding light. He didn't choose to break it, but to control it. He repaired the formation that was almost broken. If there were any changes later, it would be useful. How is it, young Masterling? Can you break it? Not long after, Fairy Linglong and the other 3 jumped up. Their movement techniques were outstanding, and they didn't need ropes or anything like that. It's a little difficult, but it's worth a try. In fact, Ling Xiao had already broken the formation and made it his own. The reason he said this was just to prevent the few of them from suspecting him. After fiddling with the formation for a long time, Ling Xiao deliberately squeezed out a few drops of cold sweat on his forehead. Panting, he said, "Everyone, the formation has been broken. Please come in. You go first." The cold-faced warrior suddenly pulled out his sword and pressed it against Ling Xiao's back. "Fairy, this is different from what we agreed on. Didn't you say that it would be fine as long as I broke the formation?" Ling Xiao said, pretending to be strong in appearance but weak in heart. "Don't be afraid. We're doing this so that we can all get the treasure. If there's another formation inside, we'll have to trouble young Masterling." Fairy Linglong saw Ling Xiao's frightened look and felt very pleased. This kid didn't give her face, so this was how he should be dealt with. "But what if you don't keep your promise and kill me?" Ling Xiao purposely made his body curl up, appearing very scared. "If you don't want to die, then hurry up and do as I say. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now." The cold-faced warrior shouted, "Hurry up and go in!" "Fairy, I don't want anything. After we find the treasure, I just hope you can spare my life." Ling Xiao hurriedly said, "Haha, why would I kill you? Don't worry, it's just that the cold-faced warrior has a bad temper. You should listen to him." Fairy Linglong said with a contemptuous smile. Ling Xiao had already sentenced these people to death in his heart. "If you want to die, wait until this young master's cultivation advances, and I'll deal with you one by one." Ling Xiao's current strength was not enough to kill these 4 people, but escaping should be easy. In any case, in a month at most, he would come to Shaw family castle to settle accounts with these people. A month's time was enough for him to break through from the mid-stage Transcendent Realm 3rd layer to the Transcendent Realm 4th layer. At that time, even if he didn't enter his human dragon form, as long as he took the refining array stone, killing these people wouldn't be a problem. Right now, of course, he had to snatch the treasures in the cave first. Otherwise, all of your schemes would be for naught. Thinking so, he lifted his foot and walked in. At that moment, he suddenly noticed a dot of light flying out from the cave. Only he who had been strengthened by the mountains and rivers' martial spirit had such good eyesight. Otherwise, the night would be as bright as day, and he would be able to catch even the slightest after-images. At that moment, Ling Xiao tilted his head slightly, easily dodging the dot of light. When the dot of light flew past his cheek, he noticed that it was actually a ghost fire bug. Ghost fire bugs looked like fireflies, but they were extremely ferocious beasts. They were generally 3rd grade vicious beasts. They would emit a strange light in the dark, but this light must not be stared at. This was because this light would release a special kind of soul force, causing people to fall into an illusion. Chapter 434. What was even more frightening was that these ghost fire insects were extremely fast. Their bodies were completely composed of a special type of ghost fire that couldn't be killed by swords or sabers, nor could water extinguish. Only special water attribute, true chi, or ice attribute, martial skills could kill them. Ling Xiao could do it, but he had no intention of doing so. If these ghost fire insects could help him kill the stern-faced cultivator behind him, he would naturally be more than happy to let them pass. Ah! Behind him, a scream rang out. Ling Xiao snickered to himself. Glancing back, Yang Kai saw that one of the stern-faced cultivator's eyes had been burned away by the ghost fire insect. However, the stern-faced cultivator was still a transcendent realm, 5th layer cultivator. At the critical moment, he had stabbed the ghost fire insect with his ice attribute, true chi. The ghost fire insect froze into ice and instantly fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. However, the stern-faced cultivator had also lost an eye. Fairy Ling Long could help the stern-faced cultivator stop his bleeding, but she couldn't regrow his lost eye. "You bastard, I'll kill you." The stern-faced cultivator was furious after losing an eye and raised his sword to attack Ling Xiao. But he was stopped by Fairy Ling Long. "We're partners now. If you kill him, you'll lose your eye for nothing." Of course, this was just a formality. In fact, she also sent a message to the stern-faced cultivator. "I'll leave that little brat to you later. You can kill him however you want. Just endure it for now." Hearing this, the stern-faced cultivator suppressed his anger slightly. Everyone then continued to walk inside. However, at this time, the stern-faced cultivator no longer dared to point his sword at Ling Xiao's back. If something else jumped out, this wicked little brat wouldn't warn him. The entrance to the secluded home was quite wide. Even if 3 people walked side by side, there wouldn't be any problems. The inside of the cave was pitch black, but there was a faint glow. Those who often searched for treasures understood that if they saw such a glow, it was likely that a treasure was about to appear. The few of them were a little excited, but they still suppressed their curiosity and didn't dare to rush forward. They still let Ling Xiao walk in front. As he walked past the cave entrance, Ling Xiao noticed that there were many knife and sword marks on the cave walls. If he was not mistaken, these should be marks left behind after a battle. Presumably, this ancient martial artist had fought fiercely with someone here and finally managed to defend his cave residence. However, he passed away due to serious injuries. Of course, this was only his speculation. Whether it was correct or not, he would have to go in and investigate to know. Ling Xiao was very careful. He was walking at the front. If there was any danger, he would be the first target. If he was careless, he could lose his life. In the quiet and deep cave, only the soft footsteps of the 5 people could be heard, as well as the sound of water dripping from a stream. The air was filled with the smell of soil and even a rotten stench. The 5 of them didn't say a word. They were probably nervous. In such an environment, anything could happen. Suddenly, Ling Xiao stopped in his tracks. Fairy Ling Long, who was following closely behind him, couldn't stop in time because she was walking too fast. She directly fell onto Ling Xiao's back. Her asterisk was stuck to Ling Xiao's skin. However, Ling Xiao didn't feel the slightest bit of hesitation. This was because he knew very well that this fairy-like woman, who seemed to be kind and understanding on the surface, was actually a conceited and vicious woman. "Pa!" Fairy Ling Long waved her hand and slapped Ling Xiao's face. However, Ling Xiao had already dodged. Her slap landed directly on the cave wall. The wall was made of stone, but a 3-inch deep palm print was left on it. It was clear how vicious Fairy Ling Long was. If this slap landed on someone's face, wouldn't his head be smashed? "Little pervert, why did you suddenly stop?" Fairy Linglong asked loudly. Fairy, there's a dragon, severing boulder blocking the way. It's filled with inscriptions, and it's obvious that it's been strengthened by a formation. Only a Grotto Heaven realm expert can break it open. Ling Xiao explained. Everyone focused their eyes and saw that there was indeed a huge boulder in front of them. There were many inscriptions carved on it, and there was even a faint golden glow in the darkness. This must be the place where the ancient martial artist passed away. He must have set up this dragon, severing boulder to prevent anyone from sneaking up on him while he was recuperating. Who would have thought that he would still die from his injuries? The cold-faced martial artist analyzed. That's right, you with the surname Ling. Hurry up and open the dragon, severing boulder. Perhaps because she was about to see the treasure that she had been searching for a long time. Fairy Linglong no longer had the patience to pretend with Ling Xiao. Her attitude became firm. I can open it, but you have to make him kneel down and apologize to me first. Ling Xiao looked at Fairy Linglong and said calmly. The person he was pointing at was the cold-faced martial artist. You're courting death. The cold-faced martial artist shouted coldly. Yeah, I'll die anyway if I open this dragon severing boulder, so I might as well die with dignity. Kneel down and apologize. And you, Fairy Linglong, kneel down and kowtow to me. Call me Grandpa Ling 3 times, and I'll help you open the dragon severing boulder. Ling Xiao said with a smile. Cold-faced, kneel down. Although Fairy Linglong was trembling with anger, she actually knelt down on the ground and ordered the cold-faced martial artist beside her. This woman was incredible. She could endure things that ordinary people couldn't. If she was allowed to live, she would definitely pose a great threat to Ling Xiao. It seemed that after this matter was over, he would have to get rid of her first. Grandpa Ling, Grandpa Ling, Grandpa Ling, we were wrong. We shouldn't have threatened you. Including the 2 peak transcendent realm cultivators. The 4 of them knelt down and called Ling Xiao grandfather 3 times before apologizing. Ling Xiao then began to tinker with the dragon severing boulder. The dragon severing boulder made use of a combination of mechanisms and spirit arrays. Its design was very exquisite, but it was a little difficult to open. However, this was only for ordinary people. For Ling Xiao, it wasn't difficult at all. Activating his mountain and river martial spirit, Ling Xiao's eyes flickered with various inscriptions. After about 20 breaths of time, a caw-caw sound rang out as the dragon severing boulder began to rise. Looking at the dragon severing boulder slowly rising, Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced martial artist exchanged glances and saw the anger and killing intent in each other's eyes. They had to kill this guy, surnamed Ling. But for now, they had to endure. You 2 stay here and guard this place. Fairy Linglong said to the 2 peak transcendent realm cultivators, don't let any vicious beasts run in. Although she said they were guarding against vicious beasts, even a fool would know that they were guarding against Ling Xiao's escape. They had suffered such a great grievance just now. If they didn't tear Ling Xiao into 1,000 pieces, they definitely wouldn't let this matter rest. Behind the dragon severing boulder, there was a gentle light. There was also a light-absorbing spirit array here, similar to the one in the medicine shop Ling Xiao had destroyed. Chapter 435. Get in. The cold-faced warrior tried to kick Ling Xiao into the stone chamber, but Ling Xiao easily dodged his kick. Instead, he used too much force and fell into the stone chamber. Novel! Fortunately, there were no hidden weapons in the stone chamber, so the cold-faced warrior did not meet with any mishap. Ling Xiao smiled and said, "Thank you for scouting the way for me." He lifted his foot and walked in as well. What a cunning guy. He's not easy to deal with. Looking at Ling Xiao's back, Fairy Linglong bit her red lips. She swore that she would never let Ling Xiao leave this place. Otherwise, it would be difficult to kill Ling Xiao again. This kid is too cunning. He's as slippery as a loach. The stone chamber was very spacious. Even if dozens of people were to be accommodated, it would not feel crowded at all. However, the furnishings were very simple. There was only an ice bed made of 1,000-year-old ice, which still exuded a cold aura. There was also a stone table, a few stone stools, and a hollowed-out groove on the wall. There were some books on it, but many of them had already decayed. An old man sat on the ice bed. This person's corpse had not yet decayed, probably due to the bed. Looking at his face, it was even a little rosy. When the three of them saw the corpse just now, they thought that the old man was still alive and were really shocked. One had to know that the design of this ancient warrior's cave was so impressive. The strength of the owner of this corpse was probably at the celestial realm. If it was true, then they would all die today. In a place far away from the ice bed, there was a herb garden. The stream flowed down the stalagmites and dripped on the herb garden. The sunlight released by the light-absorbing array here was enough for these herbs to survive. Ling Xiao's eyes were completely attracted by the herb garden, but Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced warrior's eyes were fixed on the few boxes beside the ice bed. Although the boxes were locked, the locks were broken due to the passage of time. There was no problem in opening them. Ling Xiao had no interest in those boxes because he had already seen the contents of the boxes. It was nothing more than some gold and silver. That kind of thing was no longer important to him. On the contrary, the medicinal herbs in the medicinal garden made him very pleasantly surprised. Ginseng fruit, thousand-leaf grass, dragon-tailed ginseng, summer fruit. Every single one of them was an invaluable and rare medicinal herb. Moreover, looking at the age of their growth, some of them were already tens of thousands of years old and even had spirituality. Of course, there were also those that were hundreds or thousands of years old. Those were the sprouts that sprouted later on. Vitality fruit. Ling Xiao suddenly realized that there was another main ingredient for refining the 9 dragons' quenching origin pill in the herb garden, the vitality fruit. Moreover, there was more than one vitality fruit. There were 13 origin energy fruits on the small tree. Some were hundreds of years old, some are thousands of years old, and some are tens of thousands of years old. It seemed that they did not grow at the same time, but there was no doubt that they were vitality fruits. The essence energy fruit tree didn't look rare, but the fruit had a strong essence energy. It was obvious that it was full of energy. Every fruit was shrouded in a mysterious white light. At a glance, it was obvious that they were not ordinary things. Whether it was the 9 dragons' grass or the vitality fruit, they were not easy to obtain. When Ling Xiao was in the sect, he had asked Elder Yang for help many times, but he didn't find these 2 medicinal herbs. He didn't expect that he would unexpectedly obtain the 9 dragons' grass and the vitality fruit this time. It seemed that his practice of going out for experience was really the right thing to do. It was too timely. If he had stayed in the sect all the time, there would have been absolutely no chance. Unexpected gains could always make people happier. Cold face, kill him. Suddenly, a voice interrupted Ling Xiao's joy. Then he felt a chill run down his spine. Ling Xiao might as well go all the way. He didn't care what medicinal herbs there were in the herb garden. Anyway, he transplanted all of them into the mountain river realm and planted them together with the golden snow lotus that originally existed in his mountain river realm. Wait a minute. Seeing Ling Xiao keep the herb garden, Fairy Linglong panicked. Although she wasn't an alchemist, she knew a little about the medicinal herbs in the herb garden because of the Shaw family's medicinal herbs business. She also knew very well that these medicinal herbs were worth much more than gold and silver. The cold-faced cultivator hurriedly retracted his attack and looked at Fairy Linglong in confusion. Ling Xiao, hand over the herb garden, and I can spare your life. Fairy Linglong didn't explain anything. However, her question to Ling Xiao could be considered an explanation. The cold-faced cultivator suddenly understood. It was no wonder that Ling Xiao went straight to the herb garden the moment he entered. It turned out that he had found a treasure. What if I say no? Ling Xiao smiled and said, I'm sorry, Fairy Linglong. I want to refine an elixir, and I need these medicinal herbs. I don't want the gold and silver over there. You can take them. You better think carefully. If you don't hand over the herb garden, don't think of leaving here today." Fairy Linglong frowned when she heard that. Although she was confident that she could kill Ling Xiao, she didn't know why, but she felt that something was wrong. Why was this kid so daring and relaxed? It was as if he wasn't afraid that she would kill him to silence him. "Hee, if I want to leave here, none of you can stop me," Ling Xiao said with a smile. "If you don't believe me, we can try." "Looks like you won't cry until you see the coffin. Fairy, there's no need to talk nonsense with him. Let's capture this guy alive and use our methods to make him obedient." The cold-faced cultivator wasn't as patient as Fairy Linglong. He had wanted to kill Ling Xiao for a long time. From the moment Fairy Linglong expressed her admiration for Ling Xiao, he had already harbored such thoughts. When he was blinded by the ghost fire worms in the cave, his killing intent was even stronger. "Oh, are you sure you don't want to see what's in the storage ring on that senior's hand?" Ling Xiao suddenly smiled and said, "Generally, the more valuable treasures should be stored in the storage ring. If you don't want it, why don't you give it to me?" With his reminder, Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced cultivator suddenly realized that they had almost missed the most important thing. They quickly turned around and looked at the ancient cultivator's corpse. Sure enough, the old man was wearing a very exquisite storage ring. They weren't afraid that Ling Xiao would escape because there were two peak, transcendent, realm fourth layer cultivators blocking the way. "You come here," Fairy Linglong shouted. "What? You don't dare to touch that senior's corpse, so you want me to?" Ling Xiao said disdainfully. "I can give up the herb garden. As long as you give us the storage ring, we can let you live." Chapter 436. Haha, aren't you afraid that I'll take it and run away? Ling Xiao had already expected this guy to do so. Both Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced warrior were cautious people. Although they could take it away with a stretch of their hands, they did not dare to be careless. After all, the corpse of the ancient martial artist was too intact, and they felt that it would suddenly attack them. That was why he reminded them that he had not checked their storage rings yet. He knew that they would still need him to take their storage rings in the end. He had already carefully observed his surroundings earlier, and there would not be any danger if he took off the storage rings. The ancient martial artist had died suddenly during the healing process, and there was no time for him to set up anything else. Only the formation outside and the dragon's severing stone were set up in advance. "Two cowards," Ling Xiao sneered. "Although I have serious doubts about your character. Since I can't escape, I'm content to be able to see what the ancient martial artist left behind before he dies. However, the two of you stand further away, at least 7 steps away from me." Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced warrior looked at each other, and the two of them walked toward the entrance to guard it. Even if Ling Xiao wanted to escape with the items, they could easily stop Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao looked at the two of them disdainfully and then walked to the ice bed. Just as he was about to take off the storage rings, he suddenly noticed that there seemed to be faint writing on the ice bed. It was carved by hand. According to Ling Xiao's conjecture, it was most likely done by this old senior when he was on the brink of death, in order to pass down his cultivation method. Because even if he died suddenly, it was unlikely that there would be no successor. Ling Xiao did not see the other words clearly, but he saw the last sentence clearly. It was carved very clearly, and it was bigger than the other words. "I hope that the fated one can keep the corpse and not destroy it." Although he did not know why this person wanted to keep his corpse, there was no harm in keeping it for the time being, since the other party had made such a request. In any case, as long as a corpse did not have a soul, it would not be considered a living creature. It could be stored in the mountain river world. There were many glaciers there, and any place could ensure that the corpse would not rot. Thinking of this, he simply put away the ice bed and the corpse. Then he picked up the storage ring and observed it. This storage ring has also been set up with a formation array. It will probably take some time to open it. You guys better watch the time. Otherwise, we'll all be trapped here. Ling Xiao planned to secretly transfer the items in the storage ring into the mountain river world. Then he would use the storage ring to attract the attention of Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced cultivator and take the opportunity to escape. Therefore, he definitely had to take a look at this storage ring. You'd better not play any tricks. Otherwise, we'll definitely make you wish you were dead. We'll make you suffer all kinds of pain. The cold-faced warrior warned. Ling Xiao smiled to himself and ignored him. Instead, he began to examine the storage ring. He was not lying. The storage ring was indeed protected by a formation array, and it was quite complicated. If he wanted to crack it, it would take at least 7 days. Of course, this was under the condition that he did not obtain the corpse of the ancient warrior. This ancient warrior was very powerful. He had combined his true essence with the formation array to set up such a formation array. Unless he used his own true essence and knew the trick to cracking the formation array, he would not be able to open the storage ring in a short period of time. Although the true essence contained in the corpse of the ancient warrior was almost negligible, as long as there was a little, Ling Xiao could use it to open the storage ring. After opening the storage ring, Ling Xiao first saw a set of books written on bamboo slips. After careful observation, he found that it was an ancient scroll for cultivating medicinal herbs. Its name was Scripture of the Divine Herbalist. He actually had no use for this thing, but Dai Yuling had a use for it. Dai Yuling loved cultivating medicinal herbs the most. If he brought this thing back to her and let her cultivate some extinct or extremely rare medicinal herbs, it would be of great benefit to Ling Xiao. Good stuff, take it. Ling Xiao put away the Scripture of the Divine Herbalist with an extremely fast method, and the two people at the door did not notice at all. The second thing was a jade token. Ling Xiao could not help but be excited because it was a set of flying secret methods. In the mysterious world, even celestial realm martial artists could only glide for long distances. Ling Xiao's Cloud Dragon Divine Travel was special. It could also achieve the effect of gliding, almost the same as a celestial realm expert. But these two could not fly. Those who could fly could only be experts above the Grotto Heaven realm or those who had an out-of-body realm flying martial spirit. However, flying martial spirits consumed too much true essence and soul power. In addition, the out-of-body realm time was too short. It was not very useful at all, so flying secret methods became particularly precious. Flying dragon wings is a top-tier gold ranked martial art. After mastering it, a pair of genuine wings will grow on one's back, allowing one to fly like a bird. Although the consumption of genuine is not small, it is much less than a flying-type martial spirit. Seeing this introduction, Ling Xiao almost laughed out loud. If he really learned this flying dragon wings secret method, in the future, even if he could not defeat his opponents, he could simply fly. Who could possibly catch up to him? He continued to read. Requires a cultivation above the 7th layer of the transcendent realm. Regarding this requirement, Ling Xiao did not care at all. When he was in the 1st layer of the transcendent realm, he had already begun cultivating gold, grade top level martial arts that only 7th layer transcendent realm cultivators could cultivate. Because his physical strength had met the requirements and his true essence was also very rich. Of course, the most important thing was that he had a mountain and river martial spirit. Many problems during the cultivation process could be directly avoided and solved by him. In this way, the problems caused by others due to insufficient cultivation simply did not exist for him. Take it, not to mention that flying would give him more ability to protect himself. Just the excitement of flying was enough to make Ling Xiao excited. How could he leave this thing to others? Of course, he had to take it. Little brat, what are you doing? Just as Ling Xiao was about to continue inspecting the treasures inside, the cold-faced cultivator suddenly roared and pounced towards him. Ling Xiao simply decided to go all out, no matter what kind of trash or treasure it was. He directly transferred it all into his mountain and river world. Once he was safe, he would take a good look at it. Next, he had to prepare to slip away from here. After all, 2 Transcendent Realm 5th layer cultivators and 2 Peak Transcendent Realm 4th layer cultivators. Unless he used his ancient golden dragon form, they would not be easy to deal with. However, that was a secret skill that he had kept hidden until the very end, so he would not use it casually. Otherwise, it would be very detrimental to his development. Chapter 437. Brat, you've already cracked the storage rings array, right? Hurry up and give it to us. The cold-faced cultivator said coldly. Novel! La Fairy Linglong also walked over, revealing a hypocritical smile. Young Masterling, you've already obtained so many rare herbs. Don't tell me you're thinking of taking the things in the storage ring for yourself? If a person is too greedy, nothing good will come out of it. Hee, I originally planned to split it 30 to 70 with you. I've always kept my promises, but you didn't want that and kept trying to kill me. Since that's the case, I can only take these things for myself. As Ling Xiao spoke, he carefully looked for an opening between the two and secretly put the refining array stone into the mountain river world. Trying to escape with the refining array stone was simply courting death. However, he was still using the template to control his aura, so the 2 opposite him had no idea what was happening in his body. It was our fault just now. We shouldn't have thought of killing you. But, young Masterling, if you intend to take the things in the storage ring for yourself, we'll make sure you die a horrible death. Not only will we kill you, but we'll also make your family suffer. Fairy Linglong's voice became cold. This was a very obvious threat. When Ling Xiao heard this, a strong killing intent suddenly appeared on his face. This killing intent actually made Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced cultivator subconsciously take a step back. You 2 must die, Ling Xiao said coldly. He hated it when people used his family as a threat. His parents had left him when he was very young, and he had been taken care of by Hong Qi and a group of beggars. At that time, he did not have the strength to protect his family, causing many of them to be beaten to death in front of him. But now he was already a Transcendent Realm cultivator, so whoever dared to threaten him with his family and loved ones would have to die. There was no room for compromise. Hee. Fairy Linglong laughed disdainfully and said, What a pity. I originally thought that you were a talent with great potential. As long as you were loyal to me, the Sha Castle could develop into a big city in the future, or even establish a country. It wouldn't be a problem for you to be a general or a prince. However, you don't know how to cherish the opportunity. Bah! Who cares? You're just a trivial 5th layer Transcendent Realm cultivator. This young lord will surpass you in a month or 2. Yet you still want to be my master? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? Ling Xiao spat out a mouthful of saliva and cursed. Fairy, don't waste your breath on this brat. He must have already deciphered the magic array of the storage ring. Let's kill him and take away his magic treasures. There must be something strange about this brat being able to take away the ice bed and herb garden. The cold-faced martial artist said loudly. His killing intent was already very strong. Did you hear that? It's very easy for us to kill you, if you're willing to obediently hand over your storage ring and magic treasures. We'll consider leaving you a complete corpse and bury you here, so that the wild beasts won't eat you. Fairy Linglong said with a smile. Ling Xiao did not say anything. His mountain and river martial spirit had already analyzed the escape route for him. Although the 4 people in the cave were stronger than him, it would be very difficult for him to deal with them alone. However, as long as he did not plan to fight them head-on, escaping would be easy. Now he had to create an opportunity. Fairy Linglong, you've threatened me today. Have you ever thought that after I get out I'll kill all of you? As Ling Xiao spoke, he secretly circulated his true qi, preparing to escape at any time. Of course, what he said was the truth. He had always been a vengeful person. Since the other party wanted his life, What else did he not dare to do? What else could he not do? If the cultivators of the Sha castle dared to stop him from killing Fairy Linglong, he would directly destroy the Sha castle. He was not a kind person. Hee, since you've said so, all the more reason for us to kill you. Fairy Linglong said as she approached Ling Shao, "You're only 14 years old, but you're already a level 3 transcendent realm cultivator. This shows that your talent is very outstanding. I don't dare to let you live and wait for your revenge in the future. In order to avoid future troubles, you can only die here. Only a dead person can rest in peace." Fairy Linglong had learned how to be ruthless ever since she started wandering the Jianghu. No matter what she did, she could not be soft-hearted. As long as there was an opportunity, she would definitely kill and eliminate the source of trouble. Even if it was a baby that did not seem to be a threat, she would not let it go. A wildfire could not burn it out, but it would grow again with the spring breeze. She was used to seeing tragedies brought about by a moment of soft-heartedness. Therefore, she would never make the same mistake. Clap, clap, clap. Ling Shao could not help but clap his hands and say, "Well said, well said. So, you have to remember, if you can't kill me today, I'll hunt you down to the ends of the earth. I'm the same as you. I'm used to eliminating the source of trouble and leaving no future trouble." Fairy Linglong's expression changed slightly. She did not know why Ling Shao was still so confident even now. "I like you more and more now, but unfortunately you're too scary. I really can't let you live." Fairy Linglong suddenly flew towards Ling Shao as soon as she finished speaking. The cold-faced cultivator next to her did not stay idle either. He stabbed his sword towards Ling Shao from the side. They wanted to kill Ling Shao here in an instant, not giving Ling Shao any chance to escape. Ling Shao smiled and suddenly threw the storage ring in his hand. The place where he threw it happened to be in the direction of the stream. Once the storage ring was washed away by the stream, it would not be easy to find it again. That was exactly what he had seen. "Cold face, you deal with him. Leave the storage ring to me." All of a sudden, Fairy Linglong changed her direction and rushed toward the stream. "Those outside, guard the entrance. Don't let that Ling guy escape. At the same time, send a signal to the other cultivators to guard the entrance." Even in the face of such an unexpected situation, Fairy Linglong still issued 2 consecutive orders, intending to trap Ling Shao in the cave for the rest of his life. Ling Shao knew that this opportunity would not come again. He did not care what Fairy Linglong's men were going to do. Just as the cold-faced cultivator's sword was about to pierce him, his figure suddenly flashed and disappeared from the cold-faced cultivator's sight. Not good. When did this kid's movement technique become so good? The cold-faced cultivator was shocked when he saw the change in the situation. When Ling Shao entered the cave previously, he had to climb to a height of about 10 meters. But this time his speed was even faster than his. "Quick, stop him! Quick!" The cold-faced cultivator shouted as he hurriedly chased after Yang Kai. In front of Ling Shao, a peak transcendent realm 4th layer cultivator had already knocked an arrow and aimed it at him. Chapter 438. 9 Meridians, Chi Sword, Wind Sword. While Ling Shao was running, a Chi sword suddenly appeared, containing the power of his wind heavenly phenomenon, increasing its speed. Ciela! The arrow in the hand of the peak transcendent realm 4th layer cultivator was actually pierced in half, but the Chi sword continued forward. Pu Chi! The cultivator was completely unprepared and was pierced through. If that was all, he might not have had much of a problem. After all, for a transcendent realm cultivator, as long as a piercing wound did not harm their heart or head, they would not die. But just as the cultivator was feeling proud, a terrifying soul force suddenly slammed into the depths of his soul. Pooh! Coughing up a mouthful of blood, the cultivator fell to the ground and fainted. "Be careful, this little brat is hiding his strength. Just stop him, leave him to me." The cold-faced cultivator shouted as he chased. At this time, Fairy Linglong had also picked up the storage ring and probed it with her soul force, immediately becoming furious. Little bastard, he took everything in the storage ring. Stop him. You must stop him, no matter the cost. Ling Xiao grinned meaningfully, as long as he could escape from the pursuit of Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced cultivator. He did not care about anyone else. Of the two peak, transcendent realm fourth-layer cultivators at the entrance of the stone room, one had fainted while the other had not yet recovered, but Ling Xiao had already rushed out. That speed, in the eyes of this cultivator, was even faster than an arrow. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and chase him. The cold-faced cultivator had already rushed out, followed by Fairy Linglong. They desperately chased after Ling Xiao, hunting eagles all day long. But today they had been pecked blind, causing Fairy Linglong and the cold-faced cultivator to be extremely annoyed. They had never imagined that this smelly brat, who should have been suppressed by them, would suddenly become so strong. Although his strength was still inferior to theirs, his speed was simply too fast. The cultivators in the camp were already rushing over, but their speed was naturally not as fast as Ling Xiao's. Ling Xiao exited the cave, but he was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he turned around and fiddled with something at the entrance of the cave. Hee, Fairy Linglong, you should stay in this cave for a while. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you'll catch me. The reason why Ling Xiao wanted to control the array formation at the entrance of the cave was to prepare for this moment. If he let those two guys follow him, he might not be able to escape. However, if he trapped them in the cave, it would be a different story. Brat, you are courting death. As he flew over, the cold-faced cultivator raised a sword. True essence crazily revolved around the sword. Wrapped in the silvery white true essence, the long sword suddenly became much bigger and wider, and one could feel a terrifying, explosive power. Idiot, don't even think about trapping us. The stern-faced cultivator sneered. With your early transcendent realm third-layer cultivation, you think you can achieve such a feat? Get the hell back. Looking at the ferocious sword strike of the stern-faced cultivator, Ling Xiao sneered, took out his ice dragon sword, and thrust it forward. Snow Lotus Sword Art, Congealing Water. At this moment, the Snow Lotus Sword Art was the most convenient for him. Although congealing water was not as fast as flying snow, it was very effective in hindering the enemy's advance. The ice dragon's sword in Yang Kai's hand instantly became transparent, and the surrounding air seemed to freeze. The stern-faced cultivator suddenly felt his speed slow down. But at this moment, he had no time to think so much as he thrust his silvery, white sword forward. Congealing Frost Sword. Dang! The two swords collided at the narrow entrance of the cave, the sound of metal colliding reverberating throughout the cave. The stern-faced cultivator stared at Ling Xiao in shock. He thought his sword strike would be able to send Ling Xiao flying. However, in reality, he was forced back 2 steps, almost colliding with Fairy Linglong, who was rushing over. Of course, this was because he had only used 50% of his strength. However, with his early Transcendent Realm 5th layer cultivation, how could he be at a disadvantage against an early Transcendent Realm 3rd layer cultivator? Idiot, I told you not to underestimate your opponent. This brat is very cunning. Fairy Linglong saw that the situation was not good and rushed out from the stern-faced cultivator's side, attacking Ling Xiao once again. Although she did not know what Ling Xiao wanted to do, she had a bad feeling about it. Haha, that's enough, goodbye. Pum! As Ling Xiao's voice fell, Fairy Linglong sent out a palm strike. However, this palm strike did not hit Ling Xiao, but directly hit the spirit array at the entrance of the cave. Fairy Linglong could even see Ling Xiao standing outside, but she could not go out. They could only watch as Ling Xiao's figure quickly disappeared into the distance. Fairy, what do we do now? The stern-faced cultivator was also stunned. He did not expect that Ling Xiao had schemed against them from the very beginning, even tampering with the spirit array at the entrance of the cave. At this time, the cultivators in the camp finally arrived. Through the spirit array, the people inside and outside the cave could still talk, but those inside the cave could not leave, and those outside could not enter. What are you looking at? Hurry up and chase after that Ling brat. Kill him with all your might, quick! Don't let him escape. Fairy Linglong was trembling with anger. She had been very careful, but she did not expect to be played by that brat Ling Xiao in the end. He really couldn't swallow this resentment. Pooh! Because of her anger and frustration, she actually spat out a mouthful of blood. Hurry up and tear that brat to pieces. Yes, Fairy. Although the cultivators outside did not know what was going on, they did not dare to delay when they saw that Fairy Linglong was so angry that she spat out blood. They all sped up and chased after Ling Xiao. The stern-faced cultivator also came to his senses at this time. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and punched the cave wall viciously. Little be asterisk starred, little be asterisk starred. Let me catch him. I must let him taste the worst punishment in this world. Fairy Linglong also looked outside coldly. In her anger, there was actually a hint of worry. She thought of what Ling Xiao had said before. No, why would I be afraid of that brat? Although he has outstanding talent and is very cunning, with his strength it is impossible for him to become strong in a month or two. As long as I can get out, I can just kill him. What's there to be afraid of? She was not worried about how to get out, although it might be a little troublesome. She could just use the thunderbolt bomb to blow up this place. Stern-faced, use the thunderbolt bomb. You idiots want to catch up with me? Dream on. After leaving the cave, Ling Xiao used his Mountain River martial soul to quickly figure out the terrain of this area. Then, he used the speed of the Cloud Dragon divine travel to completely shake off the cultivators chasing after him. Standing on a huge tree, he could even see the black smoke from the explosion in the distance. Fairy Linglong and the stern-faced cultivator finally used the thunderbolt bomb to blow up the cave. Chapter 439. I'll let you guys live in fear for a while. Very soon, I'll return to Shaw Castle. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye 100-fold. With a cold snort, Ling Xiao stretched his body and glided into the distance. The ancient martial artist's cave abode was an opportunity. However, Ling Xiao's goal had not changed. What he needed to do next was still to cultivate. As far as he was concerned, Fairy Linglong and the rest of the grim martial artist group were his last trial before returning to the sect. He believed that the two of them would not leave. Fairy Linglong was a very proud woman. Running away with her tail between her legs was not her style. After landing, Ling Xiao took out the alchemy formation stone from the Mountain River world and placed it on his body. That was a special situation. He had no choice but to remove the alchemy formation stone at the last minute. However, he still had to continue cultivating. In the damp forest, Ling Xiao sat on a golden bull-shaped beast that he had just killed. As he ate the beef that he had just roasted, he thought about his next move. This was already the third day that he had been walking alone in the depths of the Dragon's Submission mountain range. In these 3 days, he was not in a hurry to travel. Instead, he traveled during the day to find an opportunity to fight with the beasts. He cultivated at night to increase his cultivation level. In just 3 days, he had encountered ferocious beasts no less than 20 times. Among them, he was only able to deal with 6 of them. The rest of the beasts were too scary. He did not dare to fight them head-on. Hence, he either chose to escape or hide. Fighting could increase his strength and combat skills. Escaping and hiding could also increase his survival ability. A martial artist like him could not be invincible. Hence, escaping and hiding were the norm. Mastering the ability to survive might be more beneficial to him than increasing his combat strength. Just as he was eating, a few giant bears with black fur appeared near him. Without a doubt, These giant bears were attracted by the aroma of the meat. The 5 giant bears were at least 7 to 8 meters tall, and when they walked, they made thumping sounds, as if the earth was trembling. Of course, this was not worth Ling Xiao's attention. He had seen beasts bigger than this one. The problem now was that out of the 5 bears, 4 of them were Class 1 dire beasts, and one of them was a peak Class 4 dire beast. This level of vicious beast was even stronger than a transcendent realm 4th layer cultivator. Although it's a little difficult to defeat this guy with the formation refining stone, this is the first time I've encountered a Class 4 vicious beast in 3 days. It would be a pity if I don't kill it. Ling Xiao dropped the beef in his hand and stood up vigilantly. The inner core of a level 4 fierce beast was also one of the main ingredients for the 100-year 9 Dragons quenching essence pill. As long as he could get his hands on a Class 4 vicious beast core, he would be able to refine pills. Then he would find a safe place to take the pills and focus on improving his cultivation. Yang Kai didn't know to what extent a 100-year 9 Dragon quenching essence pill could raise his cultivation, but it shouldn't be a problem for him to reach the transcendent realm 4th layer. Over the past few days, Yang Kai had been constantly exhausting the true qi in his body and taking low-rank true essence pills. Coupled with the continuous cultivation of the 12 golden lotus arts, his cultivation had already broken through to the late stage of the transcendent realm 3rd layer. If a 100-year 9 Dragon quenching essence pill couldn't raise his cultivation to the transcendent realm 4th layer, then this thing would be useless. It wouldn't be worth it for his master to introduce it to him. Come. Ling Xiao dragged his heavy body and approached the giant bear step by step. Then a strange scene appeared. The giant bear and Ling Xiao attacked almost at the same time. Ling Xiao's fists were 3 qi swords, each about 3 inches long. This was one of the results of his 3 days of cultivation. They felt as sharp as claws. The giant bear, on the other hand, brandished its huge claws. When it slapped down, its sharp claws felt like several sharp blades that were more than a foot long. Zung! Pooh! Both sides hit each other almost at the same time. Ling Xiao didn't dodge, because even if he did, he wouldn't be able to. The refining array stones on his body were too heavy, so dodging was definitely not a good idea. Therefore, he chose to take it head-on. The giant bear's claws scratched his body, leaving a glaring burn mark, but it couldn't tear his body apart. In terms of the toughness of his body, Ling Xiao believed that no one in the transcendent realm could compare to him. His qi swords cut open the giant bear's skin, suddenly lengthening and piercing through the wound. Roar! The giant bear roared in pain. Unfortunately, it was a little too late. The qi swords extended through the giant bear's body and pierced its soft heart in an instant. Even if it was a vicious beast of this level, once its heart was shattered, there was no chance of survival. In terms of intelligence, the giant bear wasn't as cunning as Ling Xiao. Of course, this battle was also thanks to the variability of the qi swords. Its offensive power was not as good as Snow Lotus sword art, but its variability was very good. As long as Ling Xiao's brain was big enough, he could think of countless ways to kill it. Ling Xiao pulled out the qi swords and retreated. The other giant bears desperately attacked him, but he didn't care at all. Even a peak 4th class giant bear couldn't tear his body apart. So how could a 1st class giant bear cause him the slightest harm? The peak 4th class vicious beast struggled to take revenge before it died, but its injuries were too serious. After swaying a few times, it finally helplessly fell to the ground, only having the strength to twitch. When the other 4 giant bears saw the situation, they all roared and ran away. Ling Xiao took out his floating snow sword and cut open the giant bear's body, taking out a gray-white spherical object. Haha, a 4th class vicious beast's monster core! Looking at this monster core, Ling Xiao couldn't help but grin. After hunting for 3 days, he finally found this monster core. The vicious beasts he killed before didn't have monster cores. Not every vicious beast had a nidin. Vicious beasts that could condense a nidin were generally twice as strong as vicious beasts without a nidin. Not caring about the giant bear's body, Ling Xiao turned and left quickly. Killing a pinnacle class 4 vicious beast would bring him trouble. He had to leave this place quickly, otherwise he wouldn't be able to leave even if he wanted to. After running madly for about a quarter of an hour, he stopped at a cliff that was full of spiritual qi. There was a cave halfway up the mountain, but this time it was just an ordinary cave, not an ancient warrior's cave. He just happened to be looking for a place to refine pills and meditate for a while. The terrain here was steep and complicated, so it would be difficult for anyone to find it. After Ling Xiao entered the cave, he moved the array of the ancient warrior's cave from before to the cave entrance. This array was relatively simple, and he had all the required materials. Chapter 440. After arranging the spirit array, Ling Xiao walked into the cave. The cave wasn't deep and there were many stalactites inside. It looked like it was formed naturally and not some kind of wild beast dwelling. Let's cultivate here. After looking around the cave for a while, Ling Xiao confirmed that there was no danger here. Only then did he relax. It was just that because no one lived in the cave all year round, it looked a little dirty. Yang Kai tidied up a little and then took out the ice bed he had obtained before. There were words left behind by the ancient cultivator on the ice bed, and he wanted to see what was written. More importantly, cultivating on the ice bed could increase one's cultivation speed by 30 to 40%. This was another reason why he took the ice bed with him. Because the cave was too dark, Ling Xiao also arranged a simple light absorption array. This way, the cave could be maintained 24 hours a day. During the day, it could absorb sunlight, and at night, it could absorb moonlight and starlight. Although it didn't have any offensive or defensive effects, it was very practical. This could be considered one of his gains from this trip. Looking around, Ling Xiao felt that he had cleaned up enough and sat down on the ice bed. At that moment, a bone-piercing chill came from the ice bed, causing Ling Xiao to shiver involuntarily. Fortunately, he had cultivated ice attribute True Qi before, so it wasn't too difficult for him to adapt. If it were anyone else, they would have jumped off as soon as they sat down, unable to cultivate at all. Sitting cross-legged on the ice bed, Ling Xiao began to integrate the cold energy from the ice bed into his body. Although this cold energy was powerful, he had the 9 meridians spirit body bestowed by the mountain and river martial spirit, so he could absorb any kind of world energy. Even if it was such a cold energy, he could still convert it and absorb it. True Qi continued to circulate through his meridians, and with each cycle, the cold energy would weaken a little, as if it was being eaten away. After 49 cycles, Ling Xiao could feel that the cold energy from the ice bed had been completely integrated into his True Qi. Another breakthrough. Ling Xiao opened his eyes and revealed a look of joy. Peak Transcendent Realm 3rd Layer. Just like that, success came naturally. He hurriedly closed his eyes again and used his soul power to look inside his body. At this moment, he could clearly see the true yuan in his 9 martial veins. All the true essence in the body originated from these 9 martial veins, so they were very important. At this moment, the total amount of quintessential essence in his 9 martial veins had not only increased by a lot, but more importantly, the density was also increasing. The original gaseous state already had a faint feeling of stickiness. Such a vast amount of True Qi, in terms of quantity, was not inferior to that of a 7th layer transcendent realm cultivator. Even in terms of quality, it was likely no worse than a 6th layer transcendent realm cultivator. His only disadvantage now was his cultivation. If his cultivation wasn't high enough, his True Qi wouldn't be able to display its full potential. So even if he encountered a 6th layer transcendent realm cultivator, he would still find it difficult to defeat them. However, if he encountered a cultivator at the early stage of the transcendent realm, he would be able to put up a fight. No one below the peak of the transcendent realm 3rd layer could injure him, let alone become his opponent. Even among the transcendent realm 4th layer cultivators, with the exception of a few monstrous geniuses. Most of them were no match for him. Of course, this was just his combat strength in his original form. If he entered his dragon form, he dared say that he would be invincible under the peak of the Transcendent Realm 4th layer, and even most Transcendent Realm 5th layer cultivators would be his match. Once he entered his ancient golden dragon form, no one below the peak of the Transcendent Realm 5th layer would be able to defeat him. At that time, even if he faced a 6th layer Transcendent Realm cultivator, he would still be in an invincible position. Opening his eyes again, Ling Xiao could feel that his harvest this time had been quite bountiful. The past few days of bitter cultivation seemed very arduous, but what he had gained was very satisfying. He could feel that even if he didn't use the 100-year 9 dragon quenching origin pill, as long as he persisted, he would be able to break through to the Transcendent Realm 4th layer in less than a month, perhaps just a few days. However, as his cultivation improved, low-rank True Essence pills basically had no effect on him anymore. Now he had begun to use mid-rank True Essence pills to restore his true chi. Fortunately, in addition to top-grade True Essence pills, he also had a large stock of high-rank, mid-rank, and low-rank True Essence pills, enough to last him a month or two. My cultivation has just broken through, so it's not suitable for me to continue improving it for the time being. I should consolidate my cultivation first. Ling Xiao thought for a moment and gave up on refining the 100-year 9 dragon quenching origin pill immediately. He planned to wait until his peak 3rd layer Transcendent Realm cultivation was fully consolidated before refining it. He really wanted to cultivate the Flying Dragon Wings secret technique now. Once he could fly, he would have a huge advantage over anyone below the Paradise Realm, and his chances of survival would greatly increase. Thinking so, he took out the set of bamboo slips from the Mountain River world. When he was in the ancient cultivator's cave mansion, he had only briefly checked the introduction and didn't really read it carefully. Now that there was no one to disturb him, he could naturally cultivate in peace. Of course, escaping was only one of the reasons. No matter when and where, humans' dreams of soaring through the 9 heavens were very strong. When Ling Xiao was very young, he would be very excited when he saw birds flying in the sky, thinking about how great it would be if he could also soar through the sky one day. Later, when he cultivated a movement skill, he also had this goal in mind. Unfortunately, even a miraculous skill like the cloud dragon divine travel could only allow him to glide over long distances. He still couldn't really fly. In the current mystic world, only Paradise Realm cultivators could completely master the art of flight. Even if one had a flying-type martial soul, it was still not as practical as a flying secret technique. He wanted to break through to the Paradise Realm now, but it was still too far away. After all, he hadn't even reached the Heaven Realm. However, this flying secret technique was a special case. This kind of thing was an extremely rare, secret technique tens of thousands of years ago. Now, in the mystic world, it was even rarer than rarer, something that could only be found by chance. Ling Xiao let out a long breath and calmed his excited mood. Only then did he open the bamboo slips. When the bamboo slips were opened, Ling Xiao felt a wave of soul force that couldn't be dispersed directly rush towards him. This soul force rushed into his brain and actually formed a shocking scene in his mind. It was a flying dragon, a huge flying dragon. It was said that the flying dragon was a subdragon species formed from the cross between a divine dragon and a crocodile. Although it wasn't as powerful as a divine dragon because it had the bloodline of the dragon clan in its body, it was more terrifying than ordinary beasts. The flying dragon's huge body stretched out, its 2 wings covering the sky and the sun. It was dozens of meters long, and when it flew through the sky, it left a huge shadow on the ground.